Right.
So give me one more.
Okay, okay.
But with that neighbor one I got,
Yeah.
I think it'll be.
Well, we can do that too. 3 weeks ago. I'll start getting mobile order.
Yeah. I'll go ahead and get order it. How are you?
Things their way to hold them down.
Dave, I just came from his office. He was in his office.
Hey, Troy, when I called. Not to you.
Travis?
Travis, I mean.
Oh, I know. I was like, Troy, take it easy, bud. The council's
Sorry.
yelling at you.
I'll tell you what, I'll find it. I'll find it.
Good work. That's cool.
We're good, we can get started now.
I sent you an email just to make sure.
Take the
Okay, guess everybody's staring at me, waiting to see if we're ever gonna start. Appreciate everybody coming to council tonight, and, we'll go ahead and get started. Linda will give us our prayer afterwards. Scott will lead us in the pledge. We'll go to that one.
Our kind of dear Heavenly Father, as we come to this Payson City Council meeting, we're thankful, Father, for the opportunity we have of residents of Payson to be able to meet and discuss and plan for the future. Father, please be with us, that we might have a productive meeting and address the issues. We're so thankful for Payson and for what it brings to the citizens, and we hope and pray that we can make it a better place. And we ask these things in Jesus' name, amen.
audience, please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. First thing on the agenda is the consent agenda for the approval of February 17th council minutes. Do we have a motion? Any more discussion? Okay, we got a motion and a second. Do we have any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Okay, we'll go to the next thing is public forum. So if anybody would like to stand up and address the mayor and council, please come up to the stand or to the microphone, state your name. We'll give you a couple minutes. Going once, going twice. All right, we're done.
Move as fast as my older age things.
Mayor, council, a couple weeks ago, we had a meeting here. We had a gentleman, I believe it was Highline Canal, he was representing. I was bothered by what I heard him say relative to working with staff. And he kept saying that he really didn't want to talk about it or say anything bad about it, but he took another breath and continued on. And it bothered me. So I talked to some people about it. more than one person that had participated in some of those meetings that he was referring to that were less than productive. And my findings are that he's full of hot water, or baloney, or things worse than that. And I don't know if you discussed his presentation at your Saturday meeting, but I questioned the truthfulness of what he was saying. And I would just like to give my support to staff also, from what I found out in my meetings with him, that they don't feel that way. And he came here to make a presentation of which he was not prepared to make. And apparently this is the way it went in some of those meetings. And I'm still trying to figure out what the advantage would be to the city to turn over the administrative affairs of the PI system. I see zero advantage. I see more advantage to the city taking over Highline Canal than I do them taking over the PI system. So I just wanted to offer my backing to those people that mentioned the disparities and thank you.
Okay. Is there anybody else? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public forum. Next thing is staff reports. Any staff?
Mayor and Council, just a quick update on the snow report. So far, it's doing okay on the precipitation. As of this morning, we're at 97% of normal. Snow water equivalent's down to 80, and then the snow level's down to 31, so it is starting to melt pretty quick. And where we can't, whatever will get into the lakes we can capture, but once it gets, if it's down below there or that, we can't do anything. So we can't put it in our PI system yet. So it'll just go straight into the lake if it does come through. So if you do get any complaints about water coming down Dry Creek or whatever, there's not a whole lot we can do about that. So just a couple updates. Kent will be replacing the drive approach at Dalton's here in the next few weeks. That will put all those businesses without access through there for at least a week when we do that. So in case you get any complaints, we will notify the owners, but you can't drive on concrete till it has time to cure. So that will help fix a little bit of that issue with the steepness of the way it is, but we can't fix it all the way.
You're talking about the north side on Utah Avenue?
Yeah. And then just a kind of an update for development services. We've got a couple projects, some commercial projects that are about finished with their approval, so we should have some development there going on. They're both right now off of Utah Avenue, just down towards, Apex Storage and down by Liberty Save. So we should start seeing some construction there in about a month or two and start getting the roads and infrastructure in. So that'll be a good sign and some good progress for us. So unless you have any questions, that's all I've got.
Okay. Do you have any other staff?
Mayor and Council, just a couple things. On the parks end, we're still clearing out trees, cutting things up, debris that way. A side note on the cemetery, we've had 30 burials since the first of the year. So it's been really busy, really busy. That's busiest since me and Mark's been involved. On the golf course end, we're getting close. We should get just about open as soon as the pattern changes in the weather and it. But no, we're probably maybe this weekend, first next week, getting the front nine open. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, City Council. Police Department finished up February with 929 calls for service, 125 arrests, which resulted in 193 offenses, 205 citations, that resulted in 275 violations, 6 DUI arrests, 292 traffic stops, and 32 accidents. So spring's coming, and we've been extremely busy the last month for some reason. I think it's because the weather's starting to clear up and people are out and about and doing their spring readiness, I guess. So, anybody have any questions?
I just wanted to thank you and the police department for getting the graffiti taken care of on El Marcadito.
Yeah, we had to wait for some special paint on a couple of those buildings. That's why it took all week for them to get cleaned up. But I think we've got.
What's the deal on Checker?
Yeah, both of them, Checker and the Market, both required the special color or something, so it took them a week or two to get it ordered. But as soon as the paint comes in, they'll have Tag clean it up. Steve and Nikki are cleaning up the overpass, the railroad crossing sign, and a few other ones down in southern end of town. So hopefully we'll have them all cleaned up by tomorrow. So it should be back to normal. Hopefully till the little buggers are out there again somewhere. But we don't have any leads on that yet. This graffiti has happened in between here and Santa Quinn, but other than that, we haven't had that other type of in the rest of the county. So hopefully they give it up for the year, but hopefully someone will talk and we'll catch them. So.
Okay.
Mayor and council and public, I just wanted to give a report in the recreation. Some of you may have been there last night, but we did have a shootout, shooting competition at the high school. We had about 120 youth show up that were the top shooters from each school in their grade levels. And we had a fun event last night. Awarded 6 champions in each age group, boys and girls, and so it was a good event. We also are just wrapping up our youth basketball season as well as our adult seasons and competing in tournaments this week with Springville and Spanish Fork, Salem and Payson, and then in the youth also with Mapleton and Santa Quinn. So we're just wrapping those up right now. This week we were able to submit a grant to the United States Tennis Association, so we'll see if we can get some money for some additional equipment for this summer tennis program. And also public, we are starting an open gym at Mount Nebo Junior High School. Thank you, Principal Isaacson. But we are doing pickleball. And if you're unfamiliar with that, feel free to look that up. It's a combination of badminton, tennis, and table tennis, and quite a popular and growing sport at this time. So that'll be Friday nights from 6 to 9. And we'll start that this weekend. And then our adult volleyball program, our co-ed volleyball, starting with 15 teams that will be playing starting next week as well. Thank you. Oh, on the, that was a few weeks ago. I did not see it 2 days ago. Yeah, I didn't see it 2 days ago.
I saw it, or we talked with,
Yeah, I've talked to the Adams multiple times. I actually didn't see that one, so I'll have to look. But we have nets behind the goals. Currently, the fields aren't really ready to play, and we moved the goals off the fields. However, I noticed 2 days ago they were moved back on. So we do have nets behind the goals, but occasionally a ball will go over. And I know in a few years ago there were some belligerent youth that purposely kept kicking the ball over into their house and property. So we kind of tried to follow up with that. We had the police at the fields a couple of times to monitor youth that are out of hand. But
well, it's on our website.
okay. Yeah, I'll follow up and call them again and see where we're at.
Just to report on a couple of things. We are in the middle this week of helping Spring Lake Elementary with their doctors this week. So different staff members go up there during the day and read to their classes for half an hour at a time. It's a good thing. It's been a good thing for them. We'll finish up, I think, on Thursday, maybe Fridays. That's been going on this week. Mr. Haskell came in a couple of meetings ago about annexing into Elk Ridge or into Payson.
We did meet with Elkridge City. I think we gave a report on that. We met with the Allred Orchard family this past week, and they're thinking about what they would like to see happen, so we'll get some input from them, and then we'll go back and meet with Elkridge again. And I just wanted to let you know we're continuing to try to move that forward and get some answers for you and for Mr. Haskell. We also met with Mr. Larson, Guy Larson, about developing out through the Redbridge annexation. There's some big challenges there with utility infrastructure, getting underneath the railroad tracks. Pretty costly to get the infrastructure out there, and I think they want to avoid getting the sewer out there, use maybe some subdivisions, 1 acre lots with septic tanks. Don't know if we're in favor of that, but they're gonna maybe do a little bit of planning and get back to us, but there's a lot of areas in the city we need to finish up getting planned and know how we're gonna move forward, and that's one of the areas that we're gonna make, so just make sure of that.
Just keeping with the theme of our interaction with the youth, our Parks and Trails Committee, we've also been working on a project with the elementary school. So I just want to give you a little update. You'll see something next month. But at the suggestion of our Parks and Trails Committee, we were working on, actually at the direction of the city manager, to update our parks master plan, or at least our map, where our parks are located, what their names are, and we found that there are 5 open space areas in Payson that have not been officially named. Now, a lot of staff, we all have different names for these areas, and some of us even have differing views between staff. But we felt like there's 5 elementary schools, there's 5 open space areas, let's get the schools involved. And so we reached out to each of the elementary schools, and so they have identified classes or a grade or grades to actually work on this project. And so we're starting to see those names come in, some suggestions that will be forwarded to the city council next month to actually officially name those parks, and then working with the Parks Department. We're going to put signs, a rock monument in each of those with the new names, and to recognize the students. So it's been a fun project, and you'll see the results of that next month.
Okay.
So we'd like to thank the City Council for passing the e-cigarette park ordinance. New City Council is planning a town hall meeting. We're not quite sure on the date yet, but we got a grant for $500, and it's going to be on underage drinking. And then also on April 30th, we are doing a take-back event, and that's where you can drop prescription drugs off.
Where's that gonna be at?
At Payson Market. And it'll be from 10 to 2.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Mike?
Excuse me. Chamber had a very nice banquet last Friday night, their annual installation banquet. Had a lot of changes. We have a new chamber president, Rory Adams, and I was there all the time, Mayor. You were there later, and so was Brian than I was, so maybe you have some comments. But I thought it was a very nice affair. That's all I have.
I just want to pass on some thanks, I think, from Nelson Abbott in the professional manner in which the police department handled the issue with his family. He was very appreciative of that and expressed it to me, so I passed it on to you, and I think you'll be coming in at some point in time when these emotions are a little bit balanced out. But I appreciate the professionalism of our police and emergency departments. And that's all I have.
Okay. Linda?
Well, I've been gone a month, so I really don't have anything, but I was saddened to hear about Mr. Abbott. And I like hearing that it was taken care of in a professional way. I think it's a hard time for families And we want to make sure that we reach out to them and let them know that we cared for Kenneth. He was a good man.
Brian?
I echo those same sentiments, but also I have, on this fifth Wednesday is coming up, end of this month. And I just wanna know, what we can do as a city, staff, city council, to reach out to the citizens and let them know that this fifth Wednesday's coming up, they can come and participate, and then I just kinda, I don't even know how we're gonna organize it yet, if we're gonna be real informal or formal, or how are we gonna do that? So I think we need to start planning that and make sure the citizens are aware that we're doing this for them, so they can come in and talk to the city staff, the city council, and make it a good event.
Scott?
I sent an email out, and I'm good with the forum, as long as we have it as a discussion item only, and it's not decisions being made, because it wouldn't be. That would be my only concern. They've been out patching the roads, if anybody knows of any big ones or whatever, let Debbie know, at 5217, they've been doing a pretty good job from what I've seen.
Did you hear anything else from the hospital about that meeting here?
I haven't, and Dave, we did run into Kevin Johnson, and had a short conversation, I think we got one over on the east side of the hospital, just kind of told them, they need to get back with us. I know Travis has reached out, to Rick, right? It's kind of, we're kind of waiting for them. That's kind of what the discussion.
He said he was gonna try and be back with us there in the next couple of weeks again.
And they're down currently cleaning the retention basin down right behind the hospital, digging that out, looks really nice. I was contacted by, Emmanuel Bartholomew, the road that we constructed for the sewer line repair up on, behind that house and all the way along that. Well, they took the dirt down too far, and it's making his fence a road, he's put in a bunch of rocks, but I took Jeff up there. So, there's a couple of different options, something about moving the fence for the easement, but in the meantime, Jeff didn't figure they'd have the money for that, but we probably need to get some dirt up there so that those dogs keep getting out, and he was just concerned about it. Like I said, I did take Jeff, but maybe Kent's crews could haul the dirt in or something. Then I did have one other issue that's fresh on my mind today. We need to somehow communicate with the developers and contractors in the area that are building. I had an incident with one today that's hauling from Heritage Village, heading out East Avenue and spewing insulation everywhere. You can go take a ride and see how bad it is, but we need to come up with a solution or resolution on how to enforce covering the landfill, just for the landfill. I mean, for the most part, there's a lot of them that do cover them, but there's a lot that spew the garbage, because you can see it along the road from about the Christensen subdivision out here all the way to the landfill. And I did talk to Ken a little bit, but their guys can't really.
What is our ordinance on that?
Well, they're supposed to be covered.
Yeah, and it is a problem.
And if I lived out there, I'd be livid.
You get to live in town.
But like I said, I followed the guy right to the landfill as the installations flying out the back of the straighter. So, and I know some residents, but somebody that's in the professional business, especially, I did call and reach out to Byron Bastion, left him a message. Like I said, when they drop the garbage flies out and all the way up and down the road. It's not as bad here because we're going slower, but it seems like once they get out underneath the freeway and the speed picks up and the garbage starts to fly out. Thanks. That's all I have.
The chamber banquet was really nice the other night. We had Miss Utah come in and speak, and, Miss Teen Utah, come in and performance, and, so, yeah, it was a nice deal. We had a couple of, Citizen of the Year. Payson was, Denise Winley from the Chronicle, and then, Santa Quinn had, Olson, which one? Brad. No, not Brad. Yeah, what's it? Bart. Bart, okay, Bart. So, yeah, that was kinda nice. And when we got there, come to find out we're all related, so that's Denise's uncle. So, that was no planning on our end on that, so that was kinda fun. And that, we'll just go ahead and close the council and staff reports, and I'll turn it over to Linda for the scout attendance.
Okay, we appreciate these scouts coming. It's not fun to sit and listen to all this stuff. It's not fun for some of us either, so, but we appreciate you coming and earning a badge. So, when I call your name, I want you to come up and get the certificate, and then if you'll go down the line and shake all of their hands, okay? So first, we have Stephen Davies.
He's in the restroom.
Oh, here we go. But you know, I had him first. Okay, Jace. Jace Nixon, right? Okay, there you go, Jace. Congratulations. All right. And Brendan Callahan. Congratulations. Jordan Taylor. Xavier Estes. Did I say it right? Okay. Josh Taylor. Samuel Lopez Rivera.
I agree. Come on, Sam.
All right, Dakota Butler.
Not here.
Not here?
No.
Okay. Garrett Holt. All right, Mason Perkins. Oh, good man. And Seth Jones.
All right, there you go.
Okay, did we get Stephen back? Okay, Stephen. Did we miss anybody? There were a lot. Thank you, you guys.
I agree. She did full time.
So is that a motion? So there's a motion and a second on the floor, put you in there full time, no doubt, so. We do appreciate all the scouts for coming in, and we appreciate the leaders for taking the time to bring them in. It's a time-consuming job, but it's well worth it, and you get down the road a few years, and you're thankful you put that time in, so. We'll go from there. Next thing on the agenda is the Mayor's Youth Recognition Award.
at Mount Nebo Junior High. One of Shawnee's teachers wrote, "Shawnee is one of the kindest people I've ever met. Honestly, she works hard in class, she shares responsibly well, and is creative in all she does. She is kind to others and a trusted, solid friend to her peers. She has a great school spirit and is very supportive of others. Shawnee is a very responsible girl who supports her friends. She stepped in at Honor Society induction to help other students when she had no idea that she needed to get up in front of people. She has been a model member of Mount Nebo Junior High Honor Society since she was a seventh grader, coming to meetings and helping with service projects, and doing anything that is asked of her. Thank you, Shawnee." Next, can I have Alex Fuentes? Alex is a sophomore at Payson High School. Last year, Alex was diagnosed with cancer in his left thigh and started receiving treatment. Since then, the cancer has moved to other parts of his body. But through it all, Alex has remained hopeful and optimistic. Alex is one of the happiest people I've ever met. Even though it wears him out, Alex comes to school for as long as he can every day. Alex professes that he hates school, but I can see that deep down he enjoys it. He even enjoys seeing all the people that truly care for him and want the best for him. Deep down, he even enjoys the lessons given by his teachers because they help him feel like a kid. Alex loves to watch movies, especially funny ones. His favorite movie is Hot Rod. Whenever he is asked if he'd like a treat, he always asks for a Tiger Blood slushie, his very favorite. Thank you, Alex.
Alex, you want to come down? Do you want a picture of all of them? We'll put you right over here in the next hot rod. You want to come down and stand next to him? Okay, the next thing on the agenda is the Business Chamber Month. Lou?
Mayor and Council, I'm Lou Bolamas, I'm representing the Chamber of Commerce. As Mike and the mayor mentioned, we had our installation awards banquet, turned out really well. And had a good participation in that. Our next event, I believe, will be the Easter egg hunt on March 26th. And so we're working on that right now. Tonight, we're going to do the business of the month. The winner of the business of the month, they have a business in town, and they actually just expanded their business. And they had a ribbon cutting scheduled for their new expansion. And it just happened that during that ribbon cutting, before that happened, they were voted to be business of the month. And the business of the month for March is Payson Total Fitness. So they give the plaque to them.
This is a great honor. Just a little bit about my wife and I. We moved to Payson about 10 years ago. We're from a little small farming community in eastern Washington. And we wanted to find a small town to settle down in and raise our family. And our ultimate goal is to find a small business that we could help and develop and actually be a part of the community and give back. And we bought the gym a couple years ago. Actually October of 2013, and I told the Barkers when we first bought the gym that my intentions was to expand into the beauty school, and I hope that they would accommodate that, and they have. And they've been really great to work with, and it's worked out, and all the stars have lined up. And now we've got the business in a position where we can give back to the community and start helping and doing things that we wanted to. And so I guess in a sense we're living our dream, and we're looking forward to giving back and donating to as many things as we can in the fitness community and different things that we're already doing and looking forward to continuing to do. And so we appreciate the recognition from our colleagues and the other businesses out there that voted us that I don't think a lot of them know who we are, but they've recognized what we've tried to accomplish in the community and bring a fitness facility here that can accommodate everybody. So if you haven't been down there, we're not going to force a membership on you, but come and take a look and see what we've done. We're adding actually athletic endurance training and things like that hasn't really been available to South Valley community ever. And so we're going to continue to expand and use the facility and just help give back and keep our prices where people can afford them. So thank you.
If you do come, you might as well just bring your sneakers.
Like they're afraid of each other.
Mayor, can I take a minute? I forgot to do this during staff reports. So we wanted, Melanie, do you want to come up? We want to introduce Melanie Marsh. She took over for Dora as our Human Resource Coordinator, and I just wanted to introduce her. Maybe she can say a little bit about herself, and then she can come up and shake her hand. We really appreciate her being here. She's doing a good job.
Thank you. I just wanted to express my appreciation for the opportunity to come work at Payson City. This has been an enjoyable 3 weeks and really just a great experience.
Here.
Again, we appreciate her coming in and taking over that position. It's good to have somebody there and getting that up and going again. Okay, next thing on the agenda is the ULGT presentation on the TAP award, and we're going to ask for that to be tabled.
Yes, that's going to be here. They're going to be here next week.
Okay, so do we have a motion to table that?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, we got a motion. We got a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll go ahead and table that. Do we have a motion to go into public hearing? We got a motion to go into public hearing, do we have a second? We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're now into public hearing, and this is on the conditional use for the Heritage Village Assisted Living Center, and I'll turn it over to Jill.
Yeah, Mayor and City Council, actually the next two items, so this public hearing and then the review and decision on the zone change, they're gonna overlap in this discussion. So if we go back and forth between the two, recognize that they are connected as far as the overall approval.
And then when it comes down to the motion at the end, you're gonna have to tell them kind of which way to go on that. So
Yep.
we'll have to split it, because we'll have to go out of public hearing on that.
Absolutely, like the mayor said, we've got the public hearing needs to close, but we do need to have those motions in a certain order. So, working towards that. So I do have a short presentation, and then we do have the applicant here and some other representatives for this project that may want to address the city council, or they are here to answer any questions that you may have. So just as an overview of the location that we're looking at, so we're looking at about 3¼ acres that's located here at the southeast corner of the intersection of Turf Farm Road here and 1130 South. You have Walmart in this location, Interstate 15. You have Emerald Turf Farm, Heritage Village, active adult community, some residential to the north. So the applicant is looking to develop that site for an assisted living center. It's currently in the S1, which is the special highway service zone. And so there's also a request to rezone the property to accommodate this use. So that takes us into this slide here. As I mentioned, current zone is S1, as indicated on this portion of the zoning map there. And the applicant is requesting a PO1, which is professional office zone, for that parcel. Currently in the ordinance, assisted living centers are not allowed in the S1 zone, and so a zone change is necessary. And looking at the number of beds that the applicant would like, we felt that the PO1 zone would be the most appropriate zoning designation for the site. Over the last year, the City Council has been working on a land use and infrastructure plan for the South Meadows planning area. So this is what this map represents. So the parcel that we're looking at is in this location here. So just right there on the northern tip of this planning area. And so over this last year, we've put together a land use plan, an infrastructure plan, a transportation plan for that growth area of our community. And so in line with the land uses of this plan, this area is designated as senior housing, which an assisted living center would fit in nicely. So existing conditions. So on the site right now, it is just a vacant parcel of land. There has been some activity on it though. There has been some fill material that's been brought into the site. Some dirt work that has occurred. You have the Dry Creek channel that runs along the northern property of that. So there are still a lot of site improvements that need to occur with this project. And as I mentioned with the fill material, there's going to be some compaction testing and things that need to take place before any improvements can be conducted on the site. This is just another view from Google Earth, just showing to you, this is looking south towards the site. You have the intersection here with 1130 South, continuing to the Heritage Village development. So the parcel is right behind these trees right there. This just shows the existing condition of the site. The applicant has put together a proposed site plan for this request. However, the civil engineering and the site plan has not concluded. And so if the applicant does receive approval from the City Council tonight for the conditional use, then the applicant will work with staff at an administrative level in order to get through the site plan process. So site improvements can commence and the building can be constructed. So this is just a general overview of what they're looking at of the placement of the building, where parking will be located, landscaping, and different features of the site. The applicant's provided a couple of renderings to show the massing, the scale, and the design of the building. So this is one. There's another view here of the elevations and use of materials. So So just an overview of the request, as I mentioned, there's a few different land use applications that the applicant will need to receive approval of in order to construct this project. The first one is a zone change. The current zoning does not allow assisted living centers, so a zone change is necessary. And there is a pending application, and it is on the agenda tonight. The applicant is requesting a conditional use permit for the use, so the use is an assisted living center. And then lastly, in order to ensure public utilities, access, turnaround, all of those things with site planning, the applicant will work with staff on the site plan approval process. So the conditional use considerations in a nutshell, it's the applicant's responsibility to demonstrate that the proposed use is appropriate in this location and it will not impose any negative impacts on existing or future uses in the area. And so with that, hence the name, or hence the term conditional use, the city council can place conditions on the application if you felt that they were necessary in order to reduce or mitigate any of those negative impacts. And so that criteria is found in the zoning ordinance, and that section has been included in the packet. So the approval process, it requires a review and recommendation by the planning commission. And so that was conducted in January. The planning commission did review that, and they forwarded a recommendation of approval to the city council. They also, even though they weren't required to, they also provided in that motion that the city council approve the zone change to the professional office zone. And then lastly, the public hearing, the city council makes a final decision on a conditional use application, but the ordinance does require that a public hearing be conducted prior to that final decision. So in your packet, we did include a list of conditions that staff has identified that are inconsistent with the ordinance, as far as the application is inconsistent with the ordinance. So the first one is, as I mentioned before, is the approval of zone change. That's necessary. If for some reason the city council did not feel like the zone change was appropriate, then we would need to strike this item from the agenda. It could be null and void because it's not allowed in this current zone. So that's where it goes back to, as the mayor had mentioned, the actual order of motions. Site plan approval. They just need to satisfy the requirements of the development ordinances. That has not been done. There's a lot of time, effort, and money involved in getting through that site plan, specifically for the civil engineering that must be done for all the site improvements. And so recognizing that a conditional use isn't necessarily guaranteed, the applicant wanted to get through that process, get the approval before he invested any more time and money into this project. And so they'll continue to work with staff on roadway, utilities, storm drain, landscaping, design, etc. Administrative permits, the applicant will need to obtain business license and continue to maintain those licenses, whether they're at the local level or at the state level. Potential impact on adjacent uses. We've also included in your packet what the adjacent uses are on the site. You have to the south and to the west, you have Emerald Turf Farm. So it's an active agricultural operation that's in that location. To the east, you have an existing 55+ community. To the north, you have residential. And so looking at the application, it would suggest, and taking into consideration the South Meadows master plan, or the specific plan, that the proposed use would be consistent in this area. So the concern with any development encroaching on some of those existing uses are going to be noise, light pollution, different things like that. So we've also included those as part of the conditions of approval in the staff report. Section 19.23, which is our special needs housing, talks about the allowable uses and the project density. What the applicant is proposing with the 65 beds is consistent with those density requirements, but it does need to be referenced because it would be part of the conditional use permit. And then final decision by the city council. There's a few options that I've listed here. There could be other options as well, but these are the typical ones that you see before you with each of these land use applications. So after or following the public hearing, the city council may approve it as proposed, approve with conditions, deny the request, but it has to be based on criteria found in our ordinance, it has to be established ordinance, or remand the application back to staff of the planning commission to obtain additional information. So with that, I know that we breezed over that. I know it was a lengthy staff report to address all of those conditions, but that's just a quick overview for the public. And as I mentioned, the applicant is here, Chris Hermanson, that may want to address the city council.
And before we go to that point, I need to disclose that I have business dealings with the Oak Crate, who's the owner of the land. I don't believe that'll be a conflict for me as far as looking at this, but I do have that.
And I also am with Chris Hermanson too, also.
This is a public hearing, and so what we'll do is we'll ask Chris if he wants to come up and say a few words. Come up to Mike. I don't know, did you want to say something?
Whatever.
We'll let you plead your case real quick. And then after that, if somebody else would like to come up and talk about it, you need to come up after him and state your name.
My name is Chris Hermanson. I am the current owner of Elk Ridge Assisted Living, and it's a 33 bed, 29 room assisted living. I'm a registered nurse, and I'm the owner and administrator of that facility. I've been involved in assisted livings for about 19, 20 years, and working with Byron Bastion, who is involved in the 55 plus community. We feel like this is a great opportunity for this community to be involved with this assisted living, based on, obviously, majority of us know what the baby boomer population is doing, and this assisted living is a level 2 facility. We're not currently looking to take care of the Alzheimer's and dementia, even though we can take care of mild dementia. We don't have proposed currently for a secured lockdown unit. This facility, with what is involved with Payson currently, there's a lot of small facilities, and the occupancy rate for assisted livings in the state right now is approximately 93%, and a lot of facilities right now in southern Utah County are actually at 100%. There's a lot of facilities being constructed in the South Utah County, over 500 beds are proposed, but they're still based on reports a need, and especially in the South Utah County area. So that's where we're at in a nutshell.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Elaine Hymas. I want to speak for just a moment regarding this issue. When we moved here to Payson some 2.5 years ago, the location of our home was very important to us. Among other reasons, we liked the easy interstate access, the view, the nearby shopping, and a quiet, safe 55 plus community. An assisted living center nearby my home will not negatively affect any of those reasons for us coming here. I live 7 lots away from where this center will be located. In fact, I think it would be great to have this center nearby. I think it would be a big plus. I have obtained copies of everything that you've seen and gone over those. I think I'm very pleased with what will be offered in this facility. How nice and convenient it will be for my spouse to come see me when I move there, or vice versa. Depending on our circumstances, this new facility could very well be our final residency here in Payson.
What would be a far walk from home?
Would not. That's a good point. Okay. I feel that there is a need for more assisted living centers here. I've actually been in one for a recuperation. In preparing for a place to stay while I was in rehab, I found that most of the facilities here were full or had waiting lists, including the Veterans Center, which we are eligible to get in, but we couldn't because there were no facilities available for us. I would prefer to have a well-groomed, quiet facility near my home rather than a noisy strip mall or a bar, or even worse, a motel with unknown traffic and perhaps unsafe people and lots of noisy vehicles coming in and out at all hours of the day and night. So I am opposed to having another type of business put on this location and in favor of having this assisted living center built there. I see no harmful effects on our 55-plus community by having that come. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience who would like to come up?
Mayor, I did receive 2 emails, so if I can
Okay.
read those in while everyone decides if they want to come up. Okay, so the first one I received, and you guys probably know their first names, it's just Kate and Jane Morton, so maybe your neighbors. Anyway, it says, we as a household are in favor of having the assisted living facility nearby. While we do not require such service at this time, in the future it may become necessary for one or both of us. In looking at other facilities in the area, a brand new one would be preferable to the facilities currently in operation and would be more convenient for visiting spouses and family members. Thank you. And again, that's Kate and Jane Morton. Marilyn Soto also sent an email. She said, we will not be able to attend the public hearing but wanted our voice heard. We are in favor of the construction of the assisted living facility and believe it would be important because of the aging of our community. Richard and Marilyn Soto.
Okay. Is there anybody else that would like to come up?
Tracy Zobel, not as an employee of Payson City, but as a son-in-law of a father-in-law who is in this situation. And the closest place that we could get him was in Orem, over by the mall. So I'm all for it because we'd love to keep him here. It's easier for our family. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay. Anybody else? Seeing none, we'll ask for a motion to close public hearing. We got a motion, we got a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're now out of public hearing, and do we have any other discussion or questions? Or a motion?
Just one thing, I think this is a good transition from a community where people live to the other type of community for the retail, and so it's just a good transition, I think, to get those gaps.
I would echo those sentiments.
Okay. So would anybody like to try a motion, or do you wanna?
The only comment I was gonna make, Mayor, is that, the zone change would need to be approved first. And so even though it was listed differently on the agenda, we typically like to have the public hearings first on the agenda. So if we can have a motion on the zone change from the request to modify the zoning designation from the S1 Special Highway Service Zone to the P01 Professional Office Zone.
Okay, do we need to go? I guess we're out of public hearing, so we can do that. Okay.
Mayor, I'm moving a motion that we approve the zone change from S1 zone to PO zone.
Okay.
Based on the findings that it's compatible with the surrounding area.
Okay, we got a motion, we have a second? Got a motion and a second. Do you two abstain from voting, or are you gonna vote?
Vote. I don't think
They don't have to abstain, they can.
Okay, well, I just wanna make sure, so. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Zoning change has been approved. Now we'll go back to the conditional use. We have a motion on the conditional use.
I'll make a motion we approve it as proposed.
subject is a subject staff conditions.
Okay, we've got a motion to approve as proposed with the
Yeah, with
staff
the
conditions.
staff.
Okay, do we have a second? Seeing no second.
I'll second.
Okay. We got a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion's carried. Oh. So the next thing is the Payson Storage Utility Extension Agreement. We will turn the time over to Mark.
The Payson Storage agreement is an item that has brought up a tool for development that we haven't used since I've been here. The reason that I think of Payson Storage is they were the first ones to ask if we would consider doing this. What it is a development tool. Currently, the conditions are such in our ordinances that if a developer develops, they extend the public improvements and utilities through their property to the other side, whether it be street, curb gutter, sidewalk, or PI, electric. This particular situation is when the developer is beyond other developments. So there's property that is between the developer and the end of the public improvements that is undeveloped, and they won't be, it's owned by somebody else, and they're not part of the development project. And the developer, by way of an agreement with the city, indicates that they're willing to extend public improvements, public utilities through or past undeveloped property to get to his or their property, to the developer's property in the project. This instrument that we're talking about, development reimbursement agreement, would allow for a period of time that that first developer could recoup proportionally a participation in what he has already outlaid for the entire cost of what would have been participated by if it was developed one lot at a time next to each other all the way along. It does normally what we've seen with other cities is there's a 10-year life or a 15-year life. So the way that the city participates is they monitor development, and if a second developer wants to connect to what the first developer has already put in, then we would assess the appropriate same cost or the appropriate cost as if they were just putting it in, and then it would be passed through to the developer that had actually paid for it. All proportional. There would be either fee schedule or actual costs. With this, we actually were able to find an existing ordinance that addressed a portion of this concept, but it had never been used. We don't have an agreement on the clock, if you will, currently. But it's a tool that we wanted to start to use, but didn't want to do that and obligate or encourage developers unless the city council gave their nod and input. And that's why I'm here now. What I would anticipate is that if the concept is, and the tool is something the city council would like to see us use as a potential of encouraging development, sometimes out of sync, if you will, which is not a bad thing, but where we participate is the staff time and use of programming in that to track over that period of time, 10 or 15 years, these projects so that they can be recouped and redistributed by the city. Some cities have actually added an administrative fee of $1 per lineal foot or something like that to do this tracking. Those are all options. I wanted to bring the city council, kind of get your feel for it and see if you wanted to have that as a tool for the city to use to encourage development, allow them to recoup what they put in
have a question for you, Mark. Wouldn't it be better to figure out what, they're gonna know what the cost is up front. They're gonna know how much it costs to get there. Wouldn't it be better to assign those costs at the beginning instead of the city trying to come back in later and say, here's what the cost will be? And so we aren't getting in the middle of trying to figure something out. It's all set up in front and not later down the road, kick the can down the road.
Yeah, most definitely. With Payson's storage, what we anticipated is that they would put the improvements in, determine what those costs were, and we would then attach that as an exhibit, the actual cost as an exhibit to the agreement for reimbursement. In their case, there's only one property that's undeveloped. Well, actually, on either side of the street. So there's a portion where two properties are undeveloped, so there'd be two different participations potentially. But we'd monitor that, where we would be at that time determining the proportionality of those actual costs that were expended. So that's the portion that we'd be determining at the time, depending on what's developed by that future developer.
So it's just the proportionality, not what future costs would be.
Yeah. Because those should be actual costs that are laid out.
Okay, any other discussion?
Just one question, so if the guy waits 10 years to build, is it adjusted based off of inflation, or is it back to the original price? It'd be beneficial for the guy to wait for a while.
Well, yeah, you could look at it that way. It's beneficial because they outlaid it but they haven't developed, they haven't had the benefit of development over that period of time. There's a lot of questions
Just
about
the
time.
property, I guess, could cost less than 10 years relative.
But, I haven't seen where even interest or anything like that is there. I mean,
We're just talking actual cost.
Pardon?
We're just talking actual cost and not, there's no.
At this point, I don't mind researching some more and seeing if they charge interest in that, but I haven't seen it yet. I've looked at probably 3 different cities and their agreements and ordinances, and it did address fees for administrative costs by the city, but not interest as go along.
What other cities did you look at?
Provost and Logan's. Oh, and the original one that we have, the old example of in the packet was Orange, is what I'm looking for. It was before my time, so. But that's what we actually had on draft, if you drafted out, to be able to use. We've never used it, but that's what we have.
Did you talk to Orem or Provo? Did they say this had worked well as a tool that encouraged development?
As far as encouraging development, I haven't asked that question. I do know that it's one that the real question comes down to being able to stay on top of monitoring it. And that always seems to be the issue, not only in that, but other things that when it stretches over time and several iterations of staff.
Well, that's the concern, is can we track it? Because if we can't track it, then, the owner who originally paid the cost is gonna come back and be mad at us, and the person who's already developed and been there for 2 years isn't gonna wanna pay it. It's not fair to them either. So if we can track it, I think it's a good idea.
I really have confidence that we do have those capabilities, and I haven't talked in detail, but I know that we're in the process in our public works putting new software on board to track other projects that are quite a bit more extensive. But it would be.
Cover that, Travis?
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to get it set up, but we're hoping that we can get track of all this kind of stuff.
Hoping or willing?
Well,
We
we
want
should.
hoping or a will?
I'm just saying, right now, we're not set up to do that, but when we get it set up, it should be that fine.
So on this, do we have to, do we have to change our ordinances or anything, or does this come to city council every time you do one of these, or is the staff doing one of these, or how's it implemented?
Yeah, there's an underlying ordinance, that we actually need to completely redraft. It was a surprise to most of the staff that it even existed. It has a number that isn't found in our municipal code. It's in a chapter higher than anything we've ever adopted. So it's been there but has never been used. And it talks about, the trigger for that is just subdividing property. And in our case, it really needs to be development or subdivision, because I can develop without having to subdivide property. And the way the ordinance reads, I wouldn't have to participate in something that's out there. So we would bring back the ordinance and an underlying contract that would reference the ordinance.
Okay, any other discussion?
Just one quick question. So if you had the ordinance in place, it just depends on how the ordinance read, if the staff can do these, or if it has to come to city council, is that correct?
Yes, it would hopefully be something that the staff could enter into, unless there were unique circumstances, but I can't think of. The one area of I guess difference that I have seen is public utilities as opposed to public improvements. Some cities just do utilities, water, sewer, power, and that for that reimbursement. And Provost, they speak to improvements, including streets, curbs, so surface improvements in addition. My suggestion is both of those.
Sure. Everything we require should be on there.
So, what we have here today is not requiring any motion from what I'm reading on the
No,
agenda.
I'm looking for direction to make
Direction,
sure that
go
we're
ahead and
comfortable with
Right.
the type of obligation of tracking and those type of things, and we should go forward with them.
I think it's a good tool. We used it back then with a couple, 15 years so, I think it's a good tool. Tracking it's going to be helpful to have that program, but I think to have that on there. The discussion that I'm not sure yet, but we need to explore a little bit is the time limit. I mean, if you put, you can be reimbursed if it's developed in 10 years, but 15 years, whatever you think would be a good number. A lot of cities usually do 10. Orem City kind of left it open-ended, but then it becomes a tracking. So whether it's 10, 15, or 20, but I think there ought to be some time limit, enough time that development can happen, but not open-ended where it would want forever. So that's something we'll bring to you with the ordinance and have it proposed.
I was over 10 years, and if you need to go over, it's a big development, then have that conversation then. I'm going to go to 10.
This is not designed to address municipal need to upsize. That's a whole different scenario. So
Right.
if the developer needs an 8-inch water line and we need a 10-inch sewer line, those are big water lines. But we're still
Right.
This
That's
doesn't
not what I was
address
referring
any of
to.
that type of matter, and we would be participating in the entire extension at the time that it is put in the ground. So we don't participate in the deferral type of thing. It's not anticipated that way.
Okay, so, does anybody want to give direction? Is that unanimous?
And you'll have another chance to look at the detail of the ordinance and draft agreement.
Okay, so, thank you. All right, next thing on the agenda is a review of the sewer system, options for Wasatch Meadow, complex.
I'm just introduce the item, and then we do have several gentlemen here for this project. But just to give the council an overview, the Wignall annexation has been recorded, and so that property is now in the city. It's been something we've been working on for several years now. So it is finally recorded, and the property that we're discussing is within the municipal boundaries. And so Wasatch, not quite that long, but it did take longer than it probably needed to. anyway, but we're over that hurdle, and so Wasatch Mental Health, several years ago, actually purchased 5 acres out in that annexation area. So just to orient those that do not know where this is located, this is SR 198 as it leads out to Salem. So Mountain View Hospital is over roughly in this location. You have a senior living development in this area here. But most of this area is still, a lot of it's still unincorporated in the county area. A lot of it's just farming operations there. But with them purchasing this 5 acres, they would like to build an office building on a portion of their parcel. This was one thing that was discussed with the annexation, so we made sure that through the annexation process, we got the correct zoning in place at the time of annexation to help expedite this application. They do have a sensitive time frame when they have to have this building completed and occupied. And so we're trying to work with them very closely to meet those timelines. So they're looking at, not looking at subdividing or anything right now, but just looking at putting an office building on this northwest corner of the parcel. So this is the 5 acres that they own here. Looking at extending a road that would go through the middle of the property that can provide access not only to this project, but to other development in the area. They are reserving the area adjacent to the highway to more of a commercial service or retail use that would need that exposure from the highway. But it's still going to be a great project for our community. So as they've been looking at that, one of the reasons that we haven't seen a lot of development on the east side is because of infrastructure limitations. And so we've been working with them on the water and the sewer, different things. So the issue tonight is the sewer system. Any sewer facilities out here, that the sewer actually has to be lifted back into or forced back into the existing gravity fed system in the community. So they have been looking at various options of how that can be done, still staying within their timeline, but serving Wasatch Mental, and then also working with staff, maybe looking at the possibility of sizing it, placing it in a location and sizing it where it could accommodate additional development in the area. And so that's really one of the options that's before you tonight is Wasatch moving forward just on an individual lift station for their facility, or is it something that the city council would like to participate in, or possibly adjacent landowners participating in?
Would we be looking at bringing in the hospital too, or gonna keep them still on their same existing?
We have not looked at the hospital. So
I mean, if you're gonna make a regional out there.
The problem is they have to go in, for sure, you have to take it from the south side, that SR 198 to the north side.
So with that, there's a few options. So as I mentioned, we've got representatives from the project architect, the project engineer. We've got representatives from Wasatch Mental here to participate in this discussion. But I'm going to turn some time over probably to David Peterson with the engineering to go over some of these options. And Travis is here also to help. I know that he's had a chance to review this packet, and we've discussed it on the telephone with the applicants as well, trying to find a way to present this information, get some direction from the city council so Wasatch Mental Health can move forward with their project.
So, Mayor, I need to declare conflict. I was a previous landowner and I own the ground to the north of it.
Okay.
I'd like to declare that, please.
Okay.
David Peterson, Excel Engineering. We've done some cost evaluation of a possible lift station. And so, really the issue tonight is whether Wasatch Mental Health needs a lift station, one way or the other. So they're prepared to put in the minimum size that they need for their flows. The question is there's approximately maybe 45 acres that could also flow into this same, it could be serviced by this lift station. In addition, that existing senior community that's to the west of us, as we discussed this with Jill the other day, she mentioned that might even be a possibility to abandon their private lift station and have this go to a regional lift station, so that we, can eliminate a bunch of people on small private lift station and have a public lift station, they can be maintained by the city with their, they have a little better capabilities to do that. And so that's the question tonight, is whether the city would be willing to participate, either be a part owner in the lift station, or to even take over ownership of the lift station once it's constructed. And I know that there's possibly some other property owners in the area that are interested in possibly participating in the cost with Wasatch Mental Health. The cost of the lift station, the information that was provided, essentially it goes up quite a bit. I mean, it's almost 3 times the cost to go from a little private lift station to a more regional sized lift station. However, the more regional type lift stations have a lot of benefits. They have a lot strong, better pumps, able to handle a lot more area units and all that sort of thing. But I just opened that up. I don't know if there's any specific questions right now after reviewing materials that were submitted.
Travis, on a regional, what would that do as far as, I know that just the little private lift stations, we'd have problems with them all over town.
Yeah,
The veterans home has a problem down here.
the bigger ones would be better because they've got bigger pumps and stuff in them so that they don't get as much.
They don't clog.
They have a grinder and all that in it.
Oh yeah, they have grinder pumps and they don't clog as easy. They're duplex pumps. It's easy to service one of the pumps if one of them goes down.
So where are we looking at maybe putting it if you did go with the
So
regional?
if you look on this diagram, oh, there's a pointer right there. Okay. So this area right down here is where the Wasatch Mental Health is proposed. This is that existing kind of senior facility here. They have an existing lift station, private lift station in here. This is where we're proposing to place the new lift station. What that would allow is allow this vacant property here, any potential commercial up front here. This allows all the property in here, and then also approximately about this property owner and a portion of this property owner all could gravity into this lift station. That's that 45 acres we're talking about.
So your existing building could go back into that too?
You're talking about this one here? All this side right here? I meant this existing.
Well, right there in front of Wignall's. So Wignall's could flow into that?
I think it's shy of Wignall's. I think it takes in Morris and part of Milner Ridge,
Yeah.
but it doesn't quite get as far east as Wignall.
So it doesn't get that far down?
No.
Okay. All right.
So what do you prefer?
I can't speak to that. I mean, well, I guess I'd say the little private lift station they were proposed, they're very reliable systems. They're installed all over the country. The one we're proposing is E1 injector pumps. So if that goes in, I'm not too concerned about it. I prefer a little more robust system, just for the same things that Travis mentioned. You have a larger force main, larger pumps. It can handle things better. And you just,
More heavy duty?
it's more heavy duty. We'd have a generator on site so that the power goes out, it'll continue to function. But it's easier to maintain in the long term, and just from all those standpoints, it's just better. So
Personally, looking at this, we'd be better off to go with a bigger one, just so we could pick up the other properties around there, because that's been the biggest, on this big parcel right here. I can't think, what's her name, that trying to sell that?
Well, Vicky's trying to sell it for the prospects.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's been one of their issues there too.
So I met with Jeff and we had a pretty good discussion about this and like we talked about the VA, what needs to happen is a bigger one and have a cell so you can get down there and work on the pumps so you're not in the effluent.
So what's the
So you're able
difference
to
in,
work on it. Pardon?
what's the difference in cost?
70,000.
70,000 is our portion.
Or we could do some kind of connectors agreement. There's a couple ways we can look at it. It's just, the only thing I'm gonna say with the topography of Payson, bigger lift stations are gonna have to be an option if you want to see development, because unless you're gonna allow a whole bunch of little ones, which I think.
I I think you're foolish if you can go to another one.
Cause
Each
individual lift station requires a force main, and you can't tie them together.
Correct.
Maybe you could if you did a bunch of backflow stuff, but
Yeah,
it gets complicated.
it's not
so-
recommended.
So, you know, the more, if we had 4 lift stations in this area, we'd have 4 force mains going somewhere, whereas we could limit it to, you know.
The other issue is the storage unit facility right here, there are not a lot of connection locations for a force main. So we're planning to connect to this force main just north of the storage units. But other than that, there's really not very many other options to bring a force main through for these other property owners. So what that would mean is you'd end up having multiple force mains that would have to come along this north property and hook into the same manhole. Which, like Travis mentioned, wouldn't be really that desirable.
So Travis and Dave, the money for this, the extra basically $70,000, what I figured, do we have money in our sewer fund that can be used for projects like this, or where would that come from?
We'd have to come back and appropriate that money, and I'd have to talk to Sarah to see what kind of fund balance there is. The other option would be, I don't know if we've done this, but all the property owners that serve that property, we can approach them and see if they'd be willing to pay their portion up front.
Okay.
And if we could get participation from these different property owners, that would lessen the cost. But worst case scenario, the council would have to appropriate the money to service all the other areas except for Wasatch. And then we would have to collect that as those other properties go.
And I think that's a great idea, but if Wasatch is trying to do this in a timely manner to get everybody else on board and move forward, I think that might have some logistic problems, so I think we need to look at it as it Payson was doing, but I think we ought to try to get the landowners to buy in and pay for it.
Well, my personal opinion is we need a bigger, lift station that will handle them all.
And Mayor, if I could just make a comment, one thing that we did talk to them about on the phone, the consultants about, is looking at connecting Rosewood and Mountain View Estates, so the senior living, the senior housing, that's not currently included in this proposal. But for some of you that have been involved with the city for many years, you know that they come in, not regularly, but they, you know, the residents there, they come in with concerns of their privately owned and maintained lift station. They would really like to be part of the overall city system where they don't have to have those additional maintenance costs. And so that's something that we may want to look at. So that may adjust, you know, the costs some to include that property. But if we're looking at a regional facility, we may want to try to eliminate the existing privately owned and maintained facility as well.
Their line comes up from where David showed, comes all the way up to SR 198 and then cut over to that 1000.
And they come down this road right here, and they cross over and connect all the way to this manhole here.
Pretty long.
Yeah.
So you'd have to put some new piping where the lift station.
Yeah, you just run it.
Yeah, you'd install a gravity main from here down to the lift station.
So if we install it right now, and I think you do it once, you do it right, I think it saves you money in the long run, saves citizens money. Obviously, we have to come up with the money and see if it's there. But if we did the regional station and Rosewood and those people said we don't want to join right now, and then when we finished it, they said they wanted to join, do they end up paying some of that cost at that point in time? Or like right now, can they just, this is what I don't understand, can they just say, hey, I don't want to do it, go ahead and build it, when it's done, they say, sign me up?
The problem is, Doug, if we don't size the lift station big enough to handle them, they can't go to it anyway.
Right.
So.
But we
if-
want
if
to
they
build
said-
for commercial as well, too, right? Like, we
Well-
need to build it whether they come on board or not.
David and these guys have done a service area that it will handle, so.
Right.
There's only so much area we can get into it anyway, but, you know, they're not gonna pay extra to build it just bigger, just in case, it's gonna be for that service area. So if somebody were to tell
They have
us.
to come on board if we, I don't understand.
That's the question.
Well, we wouldn't size it to take them, if they told us no, we wouldn't do that.
They can't pay on to after.
So Councilman Wilson, are you also looking at, is there a buy-in cost to them? I mean, is that what
Well,
you're?
so it's $70,000, you know. Yeah.
Okay.
what I'm
That's
looking
why
at.
I was,
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at, like, we're looking to mitigate our costs, and if they're interested in getting on board, we want to bring them on board, but if they say no, and then.
We could
change
even
their
look at
minds
And
and
it may
decide
be
to
add
do
no
it.
they pay
changes
for the
for
cost
them,
of the pipe to get
the
it over
pipe
there.
to get there.
You know, there's some options we can look at.
Cause that would
Both
be.
are gonna be an expense.
Yeah, cause just to install the manholes and the pipe and connect it up, that'll be, you know, that'd probably be, could easily be $25,000, just off the top of my head, just to get us that, get it to the station.
That could be a hurdle.
I would throw 50 nuts.
That's not included in the
But
seven.
I said that could be a
No,
hurdle.
that's just to
with
put
that
their
retirement
manholes
home.
and gravity main.
They run
That
on
was
the
not-
same type
that's
budget.
not-
That was not included in any of my estimated costs.
I saw that,
I was just thinking about somebody playing basketball, they own their cherry pick, and they stayed on the offensive end, and they wait until all the work's been done, and they say, here I am. That's my only concern.
I think they would be really happy to join, but the bid you've got here does not include that.
So it would reduce.
It would have to, but we'd approach them because they've been here probably 3 or 4 times in the last 10 years. And I don't know how much they pay into their homeowner association to maintain that, but maybe they could keep paying that to us to pay that back.
Well, I don't think, they don't have a backup generator now, do they? On there? I don't think they do. So it would be well worth their time to get on
Pay
it.
for it, they just keep paying us back.
What's the time frame you need to get this done?
Maybe you can address that.
As soon as possible. I mean, we wanted to get this project started, as I said, 2 months ago. So we're already behind where we're at. But there again, if we do it in the next month, we're okay. But beyond that, we've got to move, because our lease is running out and finish work where we're at in the next year and a half.
Okay, so
So,
Dave and Travis, is that something that's doable for this bigger project, talk to landowners and things like that, and get it back to appropriating funds in a month, or is it better for them just to do their small one because we can't move that quickly?
If the council wants us to look for funds and see if we can do this, we'll schedule a budget amendment for our next council meeting in a couple of weeks.
Well, I think we need to do it as soon as possible.
And then we
These
can
guys
do a
so they can go.
connectors agreement.
We can either
For
do a
those
connectors
others.
agreement for those others, or in the next 2 weeks, we can try to make contact with the major property owners.
Like the one to the north will get hold of first.
Here's one other thing to consider is, to construct this building will take, how long will it take, Travis? How long will it take to build this building?
We're estimating 5 months.
5 months. So usually these lift stations, for the pumps, and that usually there is usually a 6 to 8 week lead time for those pumps to get here. And so if it takes 5 months to build the building, you know, we've got about 2 months to work with. In order to kind of get a finalized answer, then we need to start ordering pumps and get the lift station going so that it can be built and constructed in time to service the new building. So,
So, do we need a motion on what we want to do, or just direction on this for right now?
Direction.
You can do either way.
Well, I just like I'm gonna say, I think in order for Payson to grow, you're gonna have to,
We'll have to do something on there.
but I don't want Payson having to be footing the bill for everything. I think like David of the participation agreement, I think it's a good way to go. And if we do them right, like Jeff says, you can get down there and not have to get into effluent and change the pumps and maintain them, and if they're done right, I think it's a good thing. Like I said, the VA, I think we've had quite a bit of trouble with. And, you know,
And they ended up getting a bigger pump, I remember, right down the.
yeah, but it's not a separate cell where you can get down in there and work on everything.
So it's the bid based off the pump that you're talking about?
so there, in the information that was provided, there were 3 options. One of the options was a wet well, dry well scenario. And what that means is you have basically a manhole, and all the pumps are down in that manhole, and all the effluent is in the second manhole. So if you ever need to repair the pumps, you just climb down in the manhole and work on them, pull them out, do what you need to do.
That's what Jeff would refer.
Sure. And is that a $70,000 option? I don't have that.
Both the wet wells, basically
they're
the 2
about
robust
the same.
systems
About the
I
same.
propose are only about $3,000.
It's option 2.
I don't have the
We
option.
don't have the options.
I have, they're in the packet.
I'm looking at my packet.
Everything I've got, I don't see it. agree, I think we need to go ahead and move if we want to go.
Sure,
So I'd give direction, if that's what you want, is that we want to look at this to do the bigger project, but we want to also make sure it moves along quickly. So I'd like to see, something come back to city council in 2 weeks with a budget amendment also, depending on how many people are gonna buy in to do this. But I think we need to move this along quickly and be back here in 2 weeks.
Okay, well, some people look at, if they want to develop, they didn't have to buy in, there's no other way.
well, and if they're half of a brain, they'll look at it and say, this is what we gotta do, because the cost otherwise to do the home is gonna be. So, is everybody good on direction?
Yeah, I agree.
Mike?
Yes, I am.
Okay, all right, we'll
So
give direction.
we'll proceed to work on that wet well, dry well design, with the service area we've talked about, and then I guess we'll have further discussion on how we proceed with the other thing, the costs and so forth.
Right.
That's it. Make sure, Jeff gets in there, put it in.
Yeah, we just got this Thursday too, so we haven't had a lot of time, and we haven't really had any discussion on how to split up the cost, but we'll get working on it.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Okay, next thing is the review and approval of the pavilion and the Payson Canyon Plaza. Mark? Oh, Jill's gonna do it.
I'm here to answer questions.
I got you down as presenting.
Okay,
We're trying to keep it quick, so we put you on it.
Start talking, Mark.
If Mark, if the other Mark was on this, we'd make you put his hand in it. So, I'd be watching you.
I did pretty good on you.
I'll let you direct in a choir. Well, I noticed you kept. We gotta give you our time.
Well, I think we are to the point where we have been through planning commission, we have showed them our plans and, showed them our structural, plans. We had, Burton Lumber do our structural plans. We took, an existing pavilion and enlarged it. We walked through the site, we picked where we thought was the best place, because we ran into a few constraints. If you look at the restroom there, out front there is a spring box. So we decided we really couldn't go out front. If we went too far out front, we'd be pushing it clear over by the highway, which we didn't feel was a good safety option. So we've cleared an area behind the restroom, where the restroom would be in front of maybe a third of the building, or the pavilion, but then the rest of the pavilion would go north. And it kind of fits in there where the Frisbee golf course could still fit and work. The pavilion is there, the restroom facility is right next to it. There'll be a fire pit on the south side of where the pavilion is. The pavilion itself is 50 by 30. We're trying to do it all in non-maintenance materials, so we don't have to go paved or do the poles. I mean, that's the plan we took, except ours is bigger, and the poles will all be masonry, so it'll be a steel pole, masonry pole. Kiwanis Club is donating some money right now for tables and stuff, but over the years they said they would like to be a partner on the whole thing, so as we expand, they would do more. The Forest Service donated us a real nice fire pit to put there, so it's not just a man-made fire pit, it's an existing Forest Service fire thing, so I think it'd be a really good project, so.
As an added plus, the Kiwanis Club has some money set aside, not a lot, a couple thousand.
as much you can, I mean, it's a slab on, you know, pavilion, roof on slab is what it is. We have very little vandalism at the Canyon Park, nowhere near what we have at the other parks down in Canyon. And yet, when we go up there at night to close the restrooms and stuff, it is our busiest use park. I mean, the parking lot is full almost every night of the week, and it's just popular. And that was one of the requests we had, is can we do something for larger groups? This would be a rental pavilion available to anybody when nobody's going to rent them. Then when it's rented, it would be a source of income back to us.
I think it's a great idea. Has this been budgeted, or I don't see a cost breakdown or anything like that?
We were here 4 weeks ago, and we did all the budget amendments, and there's a cost impact fee.
So that's in there, so it's already budgeted. Okay, great, thanks.
Okay, do we have any other discussion or questions, motion?
Part of it is just direction.
You want direction, or do you want a motion?
Motion.
Do I have a motion yet?
I'll make a motion that we approve the Payson Canyon Park Pavilion as presented.
I'll second it.
Here, we got a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
We'll change it to beer can pavilion.
No.
We're the city council.
I'm kidding, it's a joke. I mean, Payson, nobody knows where Payson Park is.
I know, they don't, no more beer can places anyways.
Oh.
It's not the image we want.
No, I know. I'm kidding.
Okay, all those, do we need a,
Who seconded the motion? Brian.
do we need a roll call?
I'm not on this.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, well,
Thank you, we'll get it built.
Can I make a comment?
a quick one.
Hey, well, I'm not known for quick comments.
Well, I'm gonna hold you to a quick comment. How's that?
I got a bean shooter.
Okay,
You know, you guys are laughing and tongue in cheek about change it back to beer can flats. It needs to be beer can flats. And unfortunately, fortunately, you can look at the minutes if you'd like, and I voted against it. When they changed the name, or gave the name of Payson Canyon Kiwanis Park, it was entertained that they wanted to call it Shasta Park. And and they said, we don't want to be known for a bunch of beer drinkers. I says, no, you know, it wasn't, it isn't because we're known for being beer drinkers that I know people who drink beers up there, but, you know, it doesn't, I mean, it's very little vandalism there. Everybody knows it as beer can flats. I approach the Kiwanis Club and see what they would do because their name's kind of hinged to it, attached to it. But this is a legitimate request from a resident to the council asking if you'd consider taking that direction. Something needs to be corrected.
Okay.
That was pretty short for me.
Thank you.
We have a record, ladies and gentlemen.
It was you I saw drinking beer up there.
All right, next thing is WRP scheduling appendix. Ron.
Oh, it's not this one? Oh, sorry. Ron?
Go ahead.
I know, I put yours up twice now.
Okay, just real quick, it's the same thing we did a couple of months ago, the pooling appendage only lasts a year, and the UN budget starts in April, and so we'll go through March. So we can look at the Western area fire administration's market.
Okay. Do we have any other discussion, or do we have a motion?
I'll move that we approve resolution number 030226.
Okay.
Authorizing the name for polling appendix.
We have a seconded it. Any other discussion? Do we need a roll call on this? Scott? Aye. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. All right, next thing is the findings on the power plant study, and I'll turn that over to Kevin Garlick.
Mayor, members of the council, it's a real pleasure to be here. Again, I sure enjoy watching city work happen. Again, working to talk about zoning, sewer lift stations, and beer can flat. Again, I'm very entertained. Again, you can always get an interesting debate when we talk about power issues between public works and power directors on which is more important, flushing of toilets or electricity. So I'm hoping to kind of focus on electrical matters at this point in time.
I'd rather be able to flush my toilet. Let's put it that way.
Okay, see, now we can go off on that tangent. But again, my name's Kevin Garlick, and wanted just to introduce myself. Again, I have a long background in the utility business, and I was invited by the city administration, Dave, to come in and take a look at the Payson power plant. And just to kind of establish a little bit of credibility, it's, again, I've been in the business for over 35 years, and I've worked in a variety of different positions within that field, and also different utilities. And again, I've had a great opportunity to see a lot of good projects happen and meet a lot of good people. When I was asked to look at this, Payson has an existing power plant, and it's the question is how important is that to its critical resources? And I appreciate working with Mayor Moore and Councilman Hardy, because they were helpful in helping me understand what were some of the concerns that the council has. And really, the purpose of this study is to really respond to your issues. And I'm hoping to walk through and explain some of the findings that I have on this. But as I go through it, I invite you to ask the questions and to raise the issues. And let's make sure we address the concerns that the council has. And again, I understand you're kind of reflecting of the community and others that you serve. So, is the Payson power plant, is it doing its job? Should we continue to run it? Is it a good investment? Is there better options should Payson be looking at? And then again, a key part of the Payson power plant is the dispatch or control center. Is it doing what it should be doing? So those are kind of the premise in which I went into this study. And going into something like this, I had to kind of put things in categories, trying to determine what are big issues and what are little issues. And again, I didn't want to necessarily focus on all negative issues. Clearly, this is an opportunity to see what they're doing well and actually identify good utility practices. And so that was one of the categories was to look at how the Payson utility operates as compared to other utilities, other good practices that are out there. And then the next category was to say, is there anything in my findings or in the work that they're doing that would indicate that something is seriously wrong? Something that could be very unsafe or a poor practice that could be costing the city significant dollars. Then the last two categories was, well, what are major concerns? What are issues that should be addressed and can be improved? And then what are the kind of minor concerns? So those were the kind of the four categories I went into this study with. So I'm going to talk about some of the good utility practices that I recognized in working with the staff. And that is again, I asked and made a request for information in order to kind of like an audit, to pull a sample of what material they would provide for me. And again, in pulling that sample, I found all the documents to be in good standing and they were accurate and complete. The other thing too is this plant was, it's 30 years old. And given a plant of that age, it's very well maintained and is in good operating condition. Again, I know of several other plants were built about the same time, and they're not in the same condition. I found that the management team was very engaging and had responses, and again, there may be some disconnect between I know the business and I'm asking the questions and I'm getting appropriate responses, where somebody else may not know exactly how to ask those questions, but again, I find the staff to be very skillful and knowledgeable. But it does require that any kind of a city operation, and as critical as the electrical department is to the city, it does require good oversight by the council and the administration. One of the pluses, again, the power plant has is it has a good contract, a good connection with a gas supplier, British Petroleum, and it has the ability to have a competitor to connect to if it needed to. Fortunately, gas rates are really, really low, and it's interesting. We could have a whole discussion what impacts that have to the cost of power. And the staffing levels are reasonable. In other words, I put this chart, and if you go into the report, you'll see the numbers that kind of back up. But the star on that chart kind of represents Payson in that strike zone that they called it, and clearly they're right in the middle of it. So again, you've got a utility that's appropriately staffed for the challenges. So again, I think it is operating and has so many good, strong points. Did I find anything serious or of a big concern? And quite frankly, no. Again, I've got a couple others we'll talk about, but nothing that requires immediate action by the council or attention by the administration. So, in looking at it, I did come across what I felt like was a big, one major concern. Again, in my report, I go into much greater detail, and I'm just going to kind of summarize my findings here. But the issue I came across is in looking at the accounting and the intentions of trying to make or want the power plant to be kind of a standalone accounting. There was some discussion about making it a revenue source. And again, that's a practice that is in the utility business if you're considered a merchant plant, where your sole purpose as a power plant is to go out into the market and sell power. But where this project was built and set up by prior council members, and typically it's done when they make the decision to build a power plant. That's when you make the decision to make the investment. It really becomes at that time an expense to the city. And as an expense, it needs to be managed as such. And so when I was first looking at it, again, I kind of was confused and talked to Sarah and the administration a few times, because I thought, wow, first of all, the idea had good intentions of trying to account for it and make it a revenue account, but then I thought, wow, when it gets to the end of the year, the department is going to overstate its revenues by $1.4 million, $1.5 million. And, that's a significant number to the department. And then after looking into it further, I did find the expense account that kind of took that number back out. And so what you really have is you're just, again, putting a revenue number out there and using that same revenue number to subtract it later on in the budget, and yet you still have the expense report. account. And so to me, it's confusing, and it's not real clear accounting. And again, to the public and to others, it may, again, be, it could create that misunderstanding, but I know that's not the intent of the council and the city. It wants to make its budgets open and transparent. So again, that would be one of my major concerns, is that in the upcoming budget, as you go forward, you need to make that change. And again, I get in and I talk about that this really isn't a revenue stream. The department as a whole has all of these generating assets that, again, most of them are through the UAMPS organization, but it becomes a group, it's your generation fleet. And there are times that UAMPS makes sales to other utilities. The market, if it's favorable, and the prices are right, they may not only buy, but they may make sales. And so in the UAMPS billing itself, you can actually track what are the sales. And that kind of falls in that same category. All of the generation should be a division within the power department's budget. That's kind of my last recommendation there, that all the resources should be identified in one area. Because I was a little confused, it's in the electricity, and if you kind of read it, it almost implies as though you're running a business with, you know, all your utilities, and it applies under that term. It doesn't make it clear that it is your wholesale power supply and all of your electricity requirements too. Again, you're selling that back out to the public. So again, I think the staff understands what we're trying to say there, and by grouping it together, listing it, and organizing it, I think it will set the stage for the administration and the council to make the power department more accountable on how those dollars are being spent. And again, this one account will be your largest account, not only in the power department, but probably largest account in the city, because I'm assuming that the power department is your largest department when it comes to accounting, and your power supply is typically 60 to 70% of that budget. So it is a very important budget to watch and manage. Jumping into minor concerns, and again, when I classify these as minor concerns, these are items that I think, again, should be brought to the attention of the power department staff, and make some recommendations on things that they could, you know, make improvements. Again, I think some of these, I didn't classify them in any particular order. They just simply represent things that other utilities have developed, some better practices out there that I think Ron and his team can learn from. So I'm going to walk through them. And air quality, the question was asked, again, when you're dealing with a generation plant and you see what is going on at the EPA level, is there a chance that the plant will be shut down in the near future? And I will say that the permit that the power plant has is a good standing. It's there for another, I think, 3.5 more years or so. There are a lot of changes happening at the EPA level, and some of those are having some effect along the Wasatch Front. And again, it's a fairly active discussion out there. And the EPA Clean Power Plan, which is fortunately on hold right now, still will likely be a part of the planning that Payson is going to have to consider into the future. But I will just say, even if you look, and we could spend a lot of time drilling down into this, there's nothing in the foreseeable future, and I'm talking 3 to 5 years, that would change the planning of the operation of the plant. So again, it's something to look at and pay attention to, but you as a council and the staff should have some planning timeframe if something was to change. In other words, it won't happen overnight. You'll probably get notices 2 and 3 years in advance to look at any kind of replacement issues there. The dispatch center, and again, this kind of happens in smaller utilities growing up to be big utilities. When it comes to the costing of all of their rate, the costing of their services and the rate making, there's a tendency to kind of generalize things, where you just kind of put all the dollars in one big bucket, and then you divide it out by the class of customers and the number of customers. You just have to make sure that your revenues you collect from the customers at least covers the cost of your operation. But one of the problems that creates is sometimes we get those cost components in the wrong buckets. And currently, all of the dispatching function, all of the purpose that goes on at the power plant is assigned to generation. And so what that does is overstates the cost of that generation. It's not necessarily reflective of the type of the real cost of the services that are going on. And so again, I would propose that in the future budgets and accounting of this, that we break down the categories of what the functions that happen in the dispatch center into at least 3 different buckets. And the generation typically is the smaller of the bucket, which will actually reduce the cost of the power plant. Will it change rates? No, but it is a better accounting, and again, a function for the council to have better oversight of whether those functions are important and whether they're being, whether they are accomplishing the intended services. Because again, in the next slide, you know, the value of the dispatch center is, again, it's kind of like the 911 center for city services. Again, I won't say that it is equal to the life emergencies out there, but there are emergencies that happen in the city, whether a power line gets hit by a car and other, you know, sewer backup or water line breaks. Those are emergencies, and the customers or citizens need to have a place to call and get that after-hour service to make sure that, again, their utilities are being maintained well. Again, I notice, and I would agree, Mayor Moore pointed out that maybe the city doesn't do a good enough job of getting that information out. What is the number to call? And I think that's an excellent point. Again, I put it in my study, but I think it's worth noting that the city needs to work with the dispatch
Right
center.
now, sorry, other than Scott, how many know the number?
I found it.
How did you find it?
I got on the website. You have to kind of work, but I found it. And it's there, but it's a little bit of work. Yeah, and when your power's out, it's hard to get on the website, right? So again, there's a lot of ways to get that word out, but the dispatch center does need to definitely, again, it's a really nice benefit. I would say that Payson is on the smaller side of the utility that has a 24-hour dispatch center. And I can see why, you know, there's questions raised on how efficient or what work can be done. And again, I would challenge that if, and Ron understands this, if there's more duties that can be added or should be added, again, you should make those employees be as efficient and as accountable as any city employee. Would you consider outsourcing it? And again, in the study, I kind of address it. I think it is a last resort approach to things, because I would definitely take care of the accounting, consider added services of value, and do what you can. But if at the end of the day, if it is not accomplishing what you're hoping or wanting to do, again, you would just want to dig deeper into any kind of a study that looks at outsourcing a function like that. It can be done, but it has its own other costs and risks associated with that. So again, I would just say continue to work hard to improve the value of the dispatch center and make it more accountable for what it's doing. Again, I'll just talk, the plan is 30 years old, so it's really lived its useful life. This is kind of like owning a car. You paid off the loans on it, you got it, not a lot of investment to it, other than, again, it will wear a little bit more, and you gotta keep the tires on and keep the oil changed. But the plant has, the plant personnel has done a very good job in keeping this plant running. What you wanna watch for, and you wanna, again, make the staff accountable, is if there is a major equipment failure, you know, the crankshaft breaks, or, you know, something, you know, performance, gas mileage goes down in a car is comparable, they need to reevaluate, you keep putting money into it. You know, at some point, the staff should have a plan to retire the plant. And again, the indicators are if there's mechanical issues as they get closer. Plant probably can run another 3 to 5+ years, but there will be indicators, you know, if things happen. Part of it is you might not be able to get the parts that you need. The plant doesn't operate a lot of hours.
So you're saying we have 3 to 5 years left in that plant?
Well, no, I think you have at least 3 to 5. I think you could probably go longer than that. I've seen engines go
3 to 5 isn't pretty long.
Well, that's why I say, but it's been there 30.
Depends on how much you run it,
Yeah.
It's kind of like having a 1998 Toyota Camry. It's got 280,000 miles and maybe people go 300. But do I go out and buy a newer car, or does this still serve that purpose?
Yeah, I think, and maybe I'd even say it's like that 98 Camry that probably only has 50,000 miles. So it doesn't have a lot of miles, but it is showing some wear and tear, and maybe even a 75 Camry, you know, 80. So it's an older version. Again, you just want to be careful that the concern I would have is if there's a major part failure, do you want to put those dollars back into it? Again, they may have the spare parts to make it, but there's labor and staffing, or you come up with a plan B. So that's what you want to watch. There's, well, or reciprocating engines. I mean, again, I want to talk about, this is a little bit of more of a, kind of a background on the business that the power department works on. But, you know, at the top of that curve is basically representative of a daily curve that the power department works towards. Again, people come home, you know, after work, turn on their lights, and it drives up the use of electricity. You go to sleep, the power goes down, and you have this roller coaster effect out there every day that the utility has to plan for in meeting those electrical needs. And in order to plan for it, one kind of forecasts the future, and they create this low duration curve. Let's see if I can, is this the, there it is. So there's this curve, and how this is done is we slice this up by hours, and we stack it from the tallest or the highest hour, and we get down to where all hours are there. So that's 100%, which again, that's the base. You have this intermediate that's between the base and here, and then you have the super peak, which represents that. And the real purpose of the power plant, and that's what I'm going to try to explain, is really designed to meet this super peak, which is only a few hundred hours out of the 8,760 hours in a given year. So again, it doesn't operate a lot of hours, but when you need it, it's very critical in meeting the demands of the utility at that time. And this kind of represents the opposite, which is the supply and demand curve. So every day as they start out, they always do what is the most favorable in price in dispatching a resource. And again, dispatching resource is driven by the demand. And so this kind of curve kind of establishes that, well, wind has a very low variable cost. Again, we've talked about renewables, solar. Again, there's zero cost to operate, so you always take those things first. Again, nuclear, even though we don't have any within our region, again, it's a very low cost. It's very expensive to build, but on an operational level, it's very low cost. You got your coal facilities. You get your combined cycle, which is that's where the Nebo plant is. The San Juan, Hunter plants are in this. And this is where you get into gas turbines. Did somebody manage combustion turbines? And this is where you get into reciprocating engines. So again, that base is coming along here, and that's where you're going to get most of your generation. But when you need some peaking power, you're going to get up into a higher price. And this is actually a real curve for the Northwest region, where you have some horse butte, wind power, small hydro, coal fire, Nebo plant, and then you get into, here's Provo's diesels, and even a West Valley carbon gas combustion engine. So again, they only get dispatched based on, the price dictates when they get dispatched along that curve. So one of the important things was the curve that, or the strike price that Payson, had it set the strike price at the right level, because again, if you think about it, if it's too low, they're going to operate more, and there may have been cheaper alternatives. If they're too high, they're going to go to the market and pay higher costs than what they could have done in-house. So identifying that right level is very important. And again, I spent a lot of time going through the records, and again, I make this recommendation that, again, I think their numbers are a little low. They're operating maybe more than what the market is offering. And if they add some of these costs back in, it will probably place that back up to where the cost to operate will actually come down, and the margins they get on the market, as long as they're getting competitive access to the market, will actually save the utility of dollars. We're not talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, we're talking potentially tens of thousands or thousands of dollars. But again, this is a utility that should be looking at every 10-cent, quarter, and dollar to save for its members or its customers. This is a comparison of strike prices at different facilities. Caterpillar, if you were to build a new plant, they would suggest a strike price of $44. City of Washington, which is a UAMPS member and has fairly new engines, theirs at 38. The Provo plant, old engines built in the 70s, theirs is at 54. And then Payson originally was at 32. My suggestion, if they add some of these other variables, might move it up to 41. So again, I think it's, I'm not saying that it is 41. I think it's for Ron, the administration, and others to do a good analysis and set that price. And the price will fluctuate because the main driver of the price is natural gas here at $2.74. And again, if you notice, it does vary depending on what access you have to the market. And again, that's one of the more favorable prices. And probably right now we're on that number. This was looked at back in the fall. That number is below $2, I think, in some cases. Yeah, and so again, as that price drops, but so does the market overall, other resources will come on. In addition, even if the price was lower, you have to look at what the alternatives are. And through the UAMPS organization, Payson being a member of it, UAMPS goes out and makes purchases out into the market in order to fill the needs of the city and all of its other members. And so important to Payson is UAMPS doing a good job at buying on the market? Are they giving Payson City the proper pricing mechanisms to make it work? And again, in going through it, That's a little hard because the prices fluctuate daily, they fluctuate hourly. And so, again, UAMPS tries to give them a pre-schedule. The Payson schedulers, operators make decisions based on that pre-schedule, and decisions of whether to run or not run are made. And again, sometimes the hindsight, as you go back and look at the accounting, it can be a little off. But my findings is that it seemed to be, given the strike price, even though it was lower, that the decisions were made properly, and that UAMPS was very close to what the market prices are. If Ron or the team ever gets questioning, again, they can call other utilities that have access to market prices as kind of a check. And again, they probably should develop a daily report that compares the pre-scheduled numbers to the actual market numbers, just as a check and balance to make sure that things are accounting out right. So, the other thing I wanted to kind of point out is, how does this affect your competitiveness as a utility, and where does Payson fit? And again, I just think it's very important as a utility, and I know there's some feedback and accounting to the council, but it's important that the council understands. Is the power department being competitive with other utilities? The next chart I'll show you that again, I think it is being competitive. But the utility is growing, it has challenges in making sure that its rates are competitive and that the rate classes are competitive, because having good rates help drives the economic growth at Payson. And you want to make sure that you have the dollars in the right buckets, because it makes it easier for the council to defend on rate making. And I think I suggested that they start doing the cost of service study, and what I have found is, according to Ron, that they are planning to hire a professional to come in and do that study. There are some challenges, even though you have these rates. Solar panels are going up on houses, and the net metering rate that you currently allow for is actually giving a competitive edge to those that are putting up solar. And at some time that was nice to encourage the development of it, but now we're seeing a pretty good saturation of it happening. And in California, it's become very problematic. And Payson, along with, I know, other New York cities, along with all the utilities, even Rocky Mountain Power, is looking at developing a new rate class for distributed generation for solar customers. And at the end of the day, hopefully it will give you more fairness, not discourage. It's important to encourage solar, but it will make sure that the non-solar customers are not subsidizing the solar customers. Again, here's a little bit of a rate comparison in the study. I go in beyond the residential rates and commercial, and there's other studies. And again, it depends. It always is based on the assumption on how much somebody's using. So one has to be kind of careful not to just say, take a broad brush of rates and say, we're always cheaper, because again, sometimes smaller classes or smaller consumers of power might be different compared to others. But I would just say the big yardstick in the state is Rocky Mountain Power. And for the most part, your rates are right there and very competitive with Rocky Mountain Power. And that's a pretty good important thing, as I point out, because you also benefit with the transfer that the general fund gets later on. Payson is growing. That's a good thing. You're growing, you're experiencing growth, all indications you're going to continue to grow. So it's, as you continue to grow, just like any decision, make sure the staff and administration are bringing forward plans, long-term plans of how to deal with the power supply, because those critical decisions, just like the council back in '85 timeframe that decided to put the Payson plan in, you're going to be possibly making some of those big decisions, and those are the investments that have long impacts. Power plants go 30, your staff, ask hard questions, bring in, do the studies if you need to, but make sure that you're planning for the future. And based on what I see is, again, there's good study going on. The power department is a very valuable resource. It's a valuable utility. And, sometimes city officials kind of shy away from wanting to talk about the benefits, the transfers, the dollars that and some of them are a little bit behind the scenes, some of the other benefits that go on. And again, to me, I think as I've had some years into this and heard from different people, there was a risk that the city fathers made when they set up the power department. To get into the power business has a certain associated risk. And because of that, I think it's definitely justifiable, defendable that that risk and benefit should come back to the community as a transfer, as a dividend. And so, again, your dividend to the city, that 11% transfer between the general fund and other debt, that might be a little high. It's not necessarily the highest in the state of Utah. Utah tends to have some cities in that 10 to 12% range. I know some cities. On a national average, it's around 4.8% nationally. In the western region, it's around 8.1% as an average. But 11, again, that's a dividend check that you give yourself as a city. But again, down the road, the utility is going to be under some challenges, and it's going to be important that you try to manage that and control that as best you can. So that kind of concludes my findings. Again, a number of little things, but overall, I think the utility is operating well, and I appreciate the privilege of coming in and spending the time and going over this. And again, welcome any questions that you might have.
Do you have any questions?
I got a few questions for you. First of all, I'd like to compliment Ron for keeping the power plant in such good condition after 30 years and is still maintained really well. And I'm new on the city council, but I think one of the questions was that should we keep the power plant open versus mothballing it because of costs and that. So as I look through this, some of the questions I have, and I'm trying to understand a little bit, but I know that it's there just for the peak. But if you take, and you have the strike rate of 41 and we're at 32, so if you took the strike rate at 41 and we had 4.5 million basically, what would we be down to if we actually use the strike rate of 41? How much production would be using of that 4.5? Would it be half or?
It's kind of hard to say. You'd have to kind of run the model, and then everything is in kind of real time. That's probably not a bad assumption. It might drop it into half, because again, I don't remember what the total annual hours in a year, but it's not thousands. It's less than that, and so it might cut it in half.
And when you did the strike rate, did you take into account the staffing and maintenance and overhead and that? So in your opinion, if you took all that into account, is it even to have this plant open for maybe 500 hours a year to keep it open, running, maintained? In your opinion, is that still a good investment, or should we look at it a little further and see if we ought to mothball, just have it there for emergencies later on down the road?
Again, it's kind of a moving target. I will say that I think once you look at the biggest labor cost associated with the plant, if you were to identify that function of dispatching, which is for after hours, again, they're sitting by a phone waiting to respond to emergencies. So they're really not producing electricity. It's not a function. Now, again, they are there, if the lights go out, they can turn the switch on, they've been trained. But typically, when it comes to generation, it's kind of a planned activity. Again, you can see when your loads are going up and they have strike prices. Most of their labor, if it gets accounted over into the dispatching, to the distribution side of things, you'll see that in the budget drop. Now, hopefully, again, it becomes a small number to where it's more manageable, but it should be, again, in the big scheme of things.
Yeah, to me, the dispatch, it's gotta be separated,
Right,
so.
so once you do that function and what dollars are left over, you're gonna see a very small number. Now, they may budget for a lot of natural gas or potential operating, but that's the budget number. Actual, hopefully, will be a lot less than that. And again, it should be covered within that strike price. I will just say gas prices have really dropped off, and it's making a lot of peaking plants, you know, people are looking at doing different things, and even coal plants are kind of stepping back and having to look at how they run into the future. But I think this still has value. It's like having a car that's paid off. You still have to do some, you know, put the gas in it and make the oil changes and do some of the maintenance. You know, take a lot of the passengers out of the car, or the mechanics that, again, we call them mechanics, but they're really dispatchers. If you take that out, again, I think it'll be a lot more favorable.
Okay, and I guess one thing I was looking through here, one of the assumptions was that you said that the power plant was we thought was a revenue source. And I don't know if we've ever thought of it as a revenue source. With the whole power department, I think has been thought as a revenue source, but I don't know if the power plant by itself's ever been thought as a revenue source.
Yeah, I don't want to, it's kind of hard to characterize, but as an accounting standpoint, there was a line item in the revenue for just the power plant. And that's kind of where it becomes kind of confusing, because like I say, it really isn't a revenue source in that. The revenues are sales to customers. The customers make payment. It's unclear how one would get sales revenue unless you're making a sale to a third-party utility. And that's where, again, I think if we change the accounting, it will become clearer.
Okay, that's all the question I had.
So there's a difference between the enterprise fund and the accounting for because we're making money on the enterprise fund.
Well, that's your transfer, so that's kind of, and again, I don't have a problem because you have it at the bottom of the budget. Transfer, it's pretty clear.
But that's not considered revenue.
No, it's an expense to the utility because it's an outflow of the funds, but it's an income to the general fund, to the city. So that's why, again, if you just look at the flow of funds, the way it was set up is confusing. That's why I'm just suggesting it's clear. Any questions?
Go ahead. Go ahead. You can finish off. I have one for Ron. I'm just curious, because in April, we had a whole bunch of production. And usually, we always thought the production was like in June, July and that. And April doesn't seem like a time you aren't heating, you aren't cooling. Why did we have a big jump in production from our power plant in April?
What we were trying to do is we were looking at the numbers coming out of UAMP's market. It looked like to us they were not true market numbers. They were giving us an all-in pool type number. So we ran at night for that month to compare, and there was some problems with the UAMP's numbers, but we did save some money by running. But since then, since we've been doing the WRP scheduling, we've done that for 1 month, and it's the January billing. The
UAMP's pool price and the CRISP were within 1 mil of each other at the end of the month. So I'm hoping that'll help us make sure, give us another double check to take care of it. That's why that 1 month it did come up. The answer is cheap, but then let's give it a try and see what happens. And so I think we kind of send a message, I mean, both things, running at night and then also by looking at this other market and scheduling that in when we can.
And that's what you're finding, because one of the things too that I've learned since we started this is, as Ron indicated, this Western Replacement Power, WRP, again, that's your federal contract for hydropower. And again, because of cutbacks in the federal allocation, they go out on the market and buy power for you. Well, again, that's another check, just like UAMPS is in the market buying power. This is the federal government going into the market, given their buying size, economies of scale. Again, they're driving that cost down. And again, I think it's an excellent decision by, Ron and the UAMPS members that they've been doing. It's something that we have done at UMPA for years, because again, it's a great market option.
Mike? Appreciate all the hard work that you put into this for us. I thought it was very informative. I looked at one item that I think this is on page 6. It said power plants are investments and cost centers in the public power business. And then it talks about when the Payson Council and Water Committees decided to build and operate a power plant, it was created as a future cost center with the goal of providing electricity to the community at economic rate. I'm not sure, I certainly wasn't there when they adopted this, so I don't know what they were thinking as far as what amount of power would actually be generated by the plant for the citizens of Payson only. I guess one concern that I've had is, and you have to understand, we are dealing with a political situation here as far as other interests who would say that our rates are really high when you compare them to Rocky Mountain Power. I understand that we get all the transfers. Yeah, all the transfers that we get in here, that certainly helps us. When I say political, I have to think of Kaysville, which their citizens came to them and said, you know what, we're not gonna allow you to make these transfers any longer. So one question I had, but in fact, I don't know if this is feasible or not, is if we were to try to provide all the power for Payson citizens, do we have that kind of capacity?
No.
Not even close.
In other words, the power plant to do 100% of it.
Do 100%. During the winter, we can do probably half, and then during the summer,
A third. And so, in a typical year, well, how many hours do we actually run that plant?
I don't have those hours with me.
Do you know how many hours did you run in January? I mean, I know January was a very competitive month.
Yeah, we haven't ran, well, through the inversion time, we have to be very careful if we run. And so during the winter time, during inversion time, we prefer not to run.
Yeah, the market's actually been very favorable. This is one of the challenges,
Yeah,
is the market is,
all we're doing now is
prices are very favorable.
just exercising,
Yeah.
keep them,
That's
about once every 2 weeks.
it's pretty typical of other plants of this size.
To give you an example of the things that I keep coming back to when I'm thinking, it's kind of like having your car in the garage and you keep it running all year, and then for a couple of weeks you turn on the headlights because you want to see. And so for me, I think we have to be really looking very closely at, is this really being cost effective? Now, I was the one that asked for, let's look at this and see what we could maybe go out and do. And it doesn't sound like to me we really have an option of going out and selling much power into the.
Where you're competing, again, it's always an option, but you're competing because
It's not cost effective.
it's not cost effective, and so you're competing with all the different other plants, and so they're gonna, everybody works for low cost, so they dispatch based on low cost. And so, again, who's going to buy at your strike price if there's another alternative? That becomes your challenge.
And there's also the statement made in the study that these size of plants really are more or less being phased out. At least that's kind of what I understood.
You know, it's interesting because Springville just announced adding to their Springville plant. Provo is in the process of replacing their plant, 10 megs, going to 12 megs for peaking purposes. Lehigh City is another city I know that what they'll announce probably within the next, it's been in the papers, in the next 3 to 6 months, a new plant. Again, small, similar kind of plant for peaking and cost control down the road. So these are generation close to the load, so you don't have transmission and other wheeling costs, and that's one of those values that in setting that strike price that's important. So they serve a purpose, and that's why I say is, I think this is serving the purpose as long as it runs or you keep it running well. But you have to understand it's not there for base load. It's not your cheapest resource to run 100% of the time. So the difference is you're not putting gas in it to keep it to run. Yes, you have kind of mechanics waiting if something goes wrong, or oils, or they take it around the block once a month just to make sure it works. But it's when that, and I'll use the example, it's a Suburban, so it's kind of costly to run, but when that scout troop and you have to haul 20 kids up the hill or something and all the packs, you're gonna pull it out, you're gonna go make that trip, and it's gonna get parked back in the garage because all your day-to-day work is gonna be done by a Volkswagen or some small car.
So then it really comes back to us is, do we have the extra funds in our budget to handle this kind of benefit?
Yep.
Because, you know, currently we have probably $1 million a year in bond payments that we make that come out of our sales tax revenue. And that, we have roads that need to be repaired, we have sewer that needs to be taken care of. And, you know, I pulled up last year's budget, I was just curious while you were talking, this is for roads budget this year. We budgeted $309,000, almost $310,000 for employee salaries. You know, you got insurance, you have retirement, all those other things. Repair and maintenance was $82,000, $603,000 in natural gas. Now I assume that's not probably been as high because the gas
I'll bet
prices
that's,
have
again, I didn't look at your current budget, but I'll bet that's not even close to the number you spent.
What that gas number was not only to buy gas, but also to buy market units.
Oh.
So, but that's in the power plant budget, so that's.
Yes. That's why we need to get a power resource.
Yeah, it needs to be all kind of under all resources. So as you move from not buying gas, but buying on the market, you can see those funds flow. And again, make the department accountable. Did they make the right decisions? Run or not run, buy or sell or make those.
And if you look at this year's, but last year's, that's how it was in the budget, that there was extra funds allocated for that unit. So where we tried to put everything we could in that power plant budget, that's where I put that market purchase power as a gas cost.
And I think to your point, I think that's where, again, I think if you could get the accounting laid out better, you would be able to ask the harder questions of Ron. Did you make the right decisions about running or not buying? And I think he could then explain the flow of funds that matches the production of electricity.
I guess is the dispatch worth having it down there where, like I'm saying, half the city, I would bet you might have 100 people in this town, like 20,000 might know that number. Is that worth us to keep that or hire somebody else to?
Now, that's another decision, but it's a good one to look at, but when you look at that, accounting, see, that's the problem. All your costs are under the power plant generation, so it's kind of assigned as generation. But really, it is dispatch. That's a function of the delivery of the electricity. In other words, power lines, customers calling, things like that. If they're standing there ready to take the call. And so once you get the accounting on that function, then it'll be easier for the mayor to do what he suggested is that value, is the city being rewarded for the investment that they're making? Again, breaking it down, looking at it in smaller chunks would give you a lot better idea of how to manage.
Because I'm looking at like, I mean, your insurance alone is a killer. And we pay unreal amount in insurance. I mean, that's only one little part of the wages and everything else, so.
Yeah, and I again.
And I realize you have to split that up between all the departments, but even if you did that, is it worth it for us to keep that?
And again, I make a kind of a parallel argument. I'm not saying it's a good one. I just make a parallel that it's kind of like investing in a fire station. You've got a lot of sometimes the full-time personnel sitting there, and you actually don't want any fires, really. I mean, you don't want it, so you don't want them to be busy. But on the other hand, they manage your risk as a city. They manage the consumer's risk out there. And that's an insurance policy that you create in the function of government. Same thing happens here, but have you got it sized and costed right? And that's why you kind of need to look at it better once you get it costed right.
So does dispatch have to be like someone who's highly skilled and qualified, but also expensive like Ron? Or can dispatch be somebody that gets paid $12 an hour?
Yeah, the way Payson is set up, they basically cross-train them into different functions. So again, they do provide that generation function. They have the skills to go out, turn on the generator, understand the readings, probably do minor maintenance and things like that. Again, I haven't fully assessed it. If they're just answering the phones and dispatching crews, it's probably a lesser value. And that's what you're doing, is you're mixing multiple functions and probably having to award or pay for that multiple functions. So yes, I've seen some utilities separated out.
Water department, they still got a broken water line. You still have to call in, and whoever's on call, come out and do it. So it have to be the same as on the tower, or the same as on. One dispatcher for water, electric, and everything else? No.
Well, you have one that answers.
They're just calling out to the person on call.
That's all they're doing, other than the ones they got down there, they're saying.
So how many water calls do we have a week? How many electric calls do we have a week?
Varies. I don't know, we have a set pattern.
Well, right, I understand it varies,
The wind blows.
but they're calling the expert to go fix it. They're not doing it themselves. Like, is there that much call volume between all of those things that you need one person just for water and one person just for electric? And we might not understand.
I don't think you're understanding, because they're doing one dispatcher does all of them.
Oh, okay.
So you're not getting.
I thought you were saying that there was a water dispatch.
No. What I'm saying is,
That's ridiculous.
that one dispatcher's in there, but he's trained to start the
Okay.
engines, but if
But he answers the call for all the departments.
he answers for all of them.
Okay.
But the sewer and the water and them, or the street, he has a number there, they call in, they say, we got a water main broke. He looks over, dials that number to whoever's on call on the water, they go right down.
Okay.
So that's what I'm saying is, yeah.
So you're saying we could have somebody that's not paid as much, because they could make the call to the power department, they come in.
Yeah, whoever's on call.
Right, just like all the other departments, but the power department has their own people there,
I mean,
take care of it.
during the day, I can see him having somebody, but from 6 o'clock till
7 the next morning, you're paying somebody that's 38, 40 bucks an hour plus insurance and all that.
So what kind of direction do we need to give to make sure that we understand what our costs for dispatch is? Like, what do we do here? Is that something that Sarah's gonna go do now? Or is it something that we have to approve an motion on to follow these guys?
This was more informational, but there's things that he's suggesting we do, we'll look into those, and we can report back to you guys.
Ron, I have a question for you. On, in the evening and that, most of the time the power is, since it's just a peak load, you aren't gonna have your peak load at night, so most of the time you aren't gonna be turning that power on, right?
But sometimes you have the peak clear up until 10 o'clock, if you have a hot night.
Yeah.
Right. But that would be just during the summertime for a few months, so you can plan for that, right? Okay.
So Ron, what happens if you get a call that says the San Juan power plant just went down?
Our operator goes on the computer.
Makes a decision, right? Yeah, so that, again, that operator has a multiple function. Now, he's not a distribution dispatcher, he's now a scheduler. You know, he's gotta, okay, this power resource just quit. Do I start the engines, or do I call UAMS and schedule another resource? And so, again, they're doing cost containment in that function at that moment. Does it happen very often? No. But again, they're sitting there just in case. So, and I'll tell you, you talk about one dispatcher. You never have enough dispatchers during a major windstorm when you have multiple outages and multiple people calling that phone line. You can't take enough of the lines. And again, I'm sure he has emergency plans in place to deal with that. But again, that's what I'm trying to say is it's very hard to custom fit that. And you're dealing with a problem that's not unique. Most cities, dispatch centers, keeping them cost effective is a challenge. Because they tend to be there for emergencies, and they are a cost center. They cost money, and yet it's hard to recognize the reward immediately.
I have another question. So I think the enterprise fund is the best way. I think it's the most cost-effective way for citizens to have needs taken care of. There's been a lot of discussion politically on that. And from what I can see, that seems to be the most cost-effective measure. However, if our power plant is 3 to 5 years out on the low end and I don't know how far out on the high end, is it better when you've got your car paid off and that you run it into the ground, or that you sell it while it's got some value? Like, I don't want to sell it, but that's a hard question we have to look at.
Well, I don't think you even shut it down all the way, you just kind of, I don't know.
Well, I don't want to do that, but at the same time, are you better not to act while you have some value in hand?
Yeah, I'll just give you an example. Provo City, like I mentioned, they're tearing down their old power plant. The coal boilers were built in the 40s, no doubt. The reciprocating engines that were put in the 70s, so probably about 10 years before these, can't find a buyer.
Right.
So
They have no value already.
you're getting to that point. You might be able to ship them out of the country because they don't meet current environmental standards. So there's a good, you might be able to get a few cents on the dollar, but then again, you don't owe anything. So it's that replacement that's gonna be the bigger thing, and yeah, it might be wise to start setting aside a rainy day fund for that future investment, but that is a challenge too, given the rates, so.
What's that? You got a sewer plant, you got one for a rainy day right now.
Yeah, well, that's the challenge you have, is you deal with a lot of rainy days.
Okay, any other discussion?
I guess my only last question is, one thing I really wanted to know, wasn't quite clear from the study, was environmentally, as far as regulations are concerned. I know recently the Supreme Court made some changes that are impacting us all. But where do you see environmental regulations going which would also impact our ability to use this plant at all? I mean, right now, we generate so little power that when we do it, I don't think it really impacts us very much. But where do you see that going?
Yeah, again, good question, and I could spend a lot of time talking a little bit about it, but you answered your question in the sense that the plant will operate fewer hours, because there may be other options out there that are cheaper, and so the fewer hours of operation means less emissions, less pollutants out there. And you have a permit to permit much more than what you are. Again, Ron has to watch it and manages it, but your permit, I think, is good for another 4 years or 3.5 years.
4 years.
4 years. And there are some changes that are going on, and when I talk to the Division of Air Quality, they talk about, they'll ratchet down those permits, and at some point they'll require upgrades. For example, when I talk about these new plants that are going in these different locations, for example, that Provo plant, they're required to put SCRs, or will be required to put SCR technology, selective catalytic reduction. And again, that's state of the art, and it's changing the nitrous oxide is reducing 97–98% of its current output. I mean, that's a significant. So you're buying a new car with the best technology, $1 million just for that new technology too. Is that going to happen? I don't think within, you have to be given a reasonable return on those investments. And given the age of the plant, it's highly unlikely that the state will mandate those kind of things.
And that could be like a computer, it'd be outdated before you get it in.
So anyway, I'm not as worried. The Clean Power Plant is not directly going after reciprocating plants like this. It's strictly going after the existing coal fleet and large combined cycle plants. The NEBO falls into the Clean Power Plant. But what that does is it just becomes more important. You're reducing coal and increasing gas. And that mix is less carbon.
But isn't Utah County becoming being the most stringent because of the dirty air? Utah County area?
Yeah, it's falling under more and more restrictions, but it's interesting, most of the emissions, I think again, there's studies out there, 70–75% of transportation. Utilities, I think, is less than 10%. And as the utilities continue to scrub and clean up, you're only dealing with 10% of that issue.
I do want to compliment Ron and his crew on the way they've kept this plant going. I mean, your observations that there's still usable life in the plant, I think is very interesting when you compare that with some of the other plants that you cited that they're not able to do anything anymore. I want to compliment them on that because that's a lot of hard work. I think what we're trying to make sure we do is make sure we do the best thing for the overall city budget as well, and how it's going to best help us in the long run to meet some of the other goals in the city.
And yeah, I agree with that's why, again, you're dealing with get the accounting kind of set up right, and I think it'll help make those decisions easier for you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Welcome.
All right, next thing on the agenda is the discussion regarding the sewer treatment upgrade. Dave?
Mayor, Council, Travis and I will just kind of head your discussion and see what you want to do here. So when we talked before in our work session, we were directed to give Salem a number to buy into our sewer plant of $4 million. We passed that information on. When I went to the Mountain Eagle Water meeting the next Monday, Bruce had, after the meeting, Mayor Brelsford said, Bruce, get David, get him in there, he's supposed to have an answer for us. So I gave him the $4 million. I said, Travis would be getting him something in writing.
that day. But he asked about if we were interested in going
This is, you're talking existing sewer plant.
into our existing sewer plant. Bruce also asked me, is your council interested in going to building a new plant with Salem? And I said, well, they didn't commit to doing that in our work session, but they wanted some more information. And I said, but you'd kind of thrown out 24 million, and that's what we threw out Saturday. And he said, no, the 24 million wasn't that's for us to build our own plant alone. And for a new plant, it's going to be more than that if you combine with Payson. I said, well, we need that number from you. So Travis emailed the 4 million buy-in cost for us, and then Bruce sent back an email to Travis saying, here's using Aqua's numbers and the information we have in the projected growth of Payson, for Payson to, that's my glasses, sorry, Amanda. So he sent an email back saying if we build a new plant, jointly owned plant with Salem, Payson's flow rate in 2040 would be 5.8 million gallons per day, and using their estimates per gallon cost of $8, he indicated that it would be $46.4 million Payson's portion, plus some conveyance, property purchase right away. So his total cost for Payson to go in and build a joint plant with Salem City would be $50.65 million. That was astonishing to us. Wow. And Travis reworked those numbers that Bruce gave with less growth, because the projected growth some of those years was 6%. We haven't grown 6%. But even when we modified it down, I mean, Travis came up with, I think, 38.5 million. So you're looking between 39 million to 55 million.
And then they've got another 30 million on top of that.
Well, then he said Salem's flow rate for 2040 of 1.5 million gallons, using that same $8 per gallon, they would be a total cost of 15.5 million. So we're looking at a total joint plan of 70 million, and we're 3/4 of it.
How much would that be Elk Ridge of our portion?
Right now, Elk Ridge is running about 0.6 million gallons a day. So we're about 1.7, 1.8.
Seems like they were about 20%. That when you did that before.
So I mean, they're part
There'd
of
be
it.
about 8 million or something.
There should be about 35 million.
But, you know, we kind of looked at it and it was just, I don't see it penciling out for us to go build a
Those numbers kind of shocked us, because we got the impression that the 24 million jointly, we could split that, and that was, but yeah, those numbers kind of hit us. So we emailed them to you guys, and we want to talk about it tonight, because that's, I mean, they want to know.
Because Mayor Brelsford wants
We put
an
in
answer.
long lift stations for that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, I know he wants an answer, if whether we're interested in going, and I just want you guys to make that decision, because we feel like that's way out of our league. I mean, we're talking about a reservoir of 50 to 75 million, and we're trying to figure out how we can pay for that. If we have to add on another 50 million for a sewer plant, that's a lot of money.
And what was the estimate to upgrade ours to cover us for the next 20 years?
Yeah, he hasn't given us a direct number, because we still haven't got the word back from the state of exactly what our permit's gonna be, and the phosphorus levels and stuff, and ammonia. But he's told us informally it's anywhere from like 12 to 15 million.
This is the Aqua guy?
Yeah, that's Brad.
And when
what
you
I-
say he, is it Mayor Brailsford that's giving the joint numbers, or is it the Aqua guy who's giving the numbers?
No.
Bruce Ward is their consultant, engineering, works for Forest Green.
It's the same, I mean, they're
So-
consultants.
Forest Green is who's done, they got their money from the state just like we did to do our study. And so that's what they've come up with on this joint plan. So I did drop, like Dave said, I dropped our projection numbers down because the governor's numbers show us growing certain periods like of 6.5%, which in the last 3 or 4 years, we've grown less than 1%. So I kind of reworked the numbers. That's where I came up with the 38 million. Was kind of taking the same calculations but dropping the population, and that drops the flow. But even then, you know, we could be 38, 45 million or somewhere in that range to go build a new plant. And talking with Aqua, where our current plant is, we can probably, through different technologies, we should have plenty of room there to go beyond even 20 years. So we didn't feel like that was gonna be, if we would have said our plant size is not gonna be able to go anywhere after 20 years, then maybe it becomes a feasible option, but I don't think that's a concern.
So last Saturday, after we got some of these original numbers, I talked to, what's his name, consultant for Aqua?
Oh, Brad?
Brad. Let's take my son's name, Brad. I talked to Brad, when I was over at that economic thing at Utah, in Provo. And, he indicated if Payson, or if Salem comes over to us, we can do this upgrade and handle for the next 20 plus years. But after that, depending on the technology, like we talked about before, there may be a little bit of a challenge. He said if Salem doesn't come over to Payson, you've got all sorts of room at your current plant to do your upgrade and maybe beyond that to do more upgrades.
Salem needs to build their own, I guess.
So again, we'd still like to know if Salem wants to come and buy in and help participate. I think it'd be cheaper for them to help upgrade.
But we still gotta look out for our
We do.
residents more than we gotta look out for Salem.
This was just one more piece to say, are you wanting to come over and join Salem in a new plant?
Because I think if, Salem was seriously looking at coming to us, that's where we get into all those details of, how much are you paying, not just the buy-in cost, but future
For the upgrade.
upgrades and work all that out. But I don't see it feasible to go build a new plant with them.
But it's 14 million-ish if we do our own.
Could be a little less, but probably 12 to 14.
To handle those, the adjusted numbers you're looking at.
That gets us approximately 20 years down.
But we're exponentially more than someone else?
Well,
I don't understand that.
You're what now?
Well, you're building a whole new plant, and they're calculating our flows
45 million.
going from 1.7 right now to 5.8. So that's a huge.
They're building increased capacity.
For 50 years down the road.
And whether we would really get there, that's why my number was lower, it's still 38 million.
20 years, the technology may be totally different.
Yeah.
But, if you guys are comfortable, we'll give Salem the notice that we're not interested in going to a new plant, but we didn't wanna say that, and then if you guys had a different philosophy.
Is this technology building more settling ponds and stuff, or are you talking about doing newer technology?
It's a combination of redundancy and new technology.
This upgrade is not doing the MBR plant like Santa Clara. It's still the mechanical plant that we have.
Like our treatment filter will eventually go away, our air rotors will go away, and those will be replaced by different newer technology.
We have newer technology, but we're not going to a totally new, like Santa Clara's MBR plant.
It'll still stink.
But part of our upgrade, part of that 12 to 15, 16 million that Aqua's doing, that's gonna help us be more redundant so we don't violate with the state, plus increase for the current new phosphorus ammonia standards and provide for us in the future, so.
No, that was, what'd you say? No, Jim said they was gonna stay with their own because of the savings in power.
Well, I think for a while they will, but during that 20-year process, I think those will probably go away. Not, because the whole upgrade won't happen necessarily all at one time. Certain parts will be done to meet the phosphorus and that, and then other parts will come online, through that 20-year period.
Yeah, but we'll face and stick with that, usually, or will we just keep shoving them off and saying we'll do something else?
I think we're gonna have to, as EPA mandates.
I mean,
It's
that's
just like we're
been
doing
the
now.
biggest problem we've had for years and years.
I can't see the future any better than you guys, so who knows what the federal government will enact on us,
I mean, you can't find one council to another, and that's.
So, right now, with the best information we have right now, this is what we can do. Will that change in 5 to 10 years? I have no idea.
Possibly.
I know, I should be able to see the future.
But that's what you went to school for.
Yeah, in that class I must have skipped.
He fell asleep.
Yeah.
Well, well, that's a lot of money.
Now, will that give us any new buildings or anything down there?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't got the full plan done yet, but yeah, I mean, the state's really pushing to get rid of the chlorine and go to UV. So there definitely will be some changes over this 20-year time period.
That's one of the biggest issues, is that environment that eats everything.
You know, we'll have to add probably another digester, we'll have to add a couple clarifiers. You know, there's a chance that we might even have to move the headworks building and actually pump more, you know, just because of room and some things. So that stuff will all be figured out once we know the number the state's making us hit.
Well, when I talked to Brad Rasmussen, that's what I was starting to tell you, I got sidetracked, but because we haven't learned what the state's, what our permit's gonna be, he said he's just gonna move forward as if we're taking the worst case scenario on the ammonia, because that's the one we really are really unknown for. And we'll just get that designed so that we can move forward, and then if we get the answer from the state, we can always pare that back a little bit. But it's just time to get us an answer so we know what it's gonna cost us, when we can get started on it, and how we can get going, so.
And back to my comment before on the infrastructure, that'll free up some money, I'm not saying free up some money, but at least it help in lift stations, some larger lift stations, things, I was thinking.
Okay,
So that's what we kind of wanted your direction on, from whether you want to go in with Salem on this proposed new location, new site.
what's the direction? How big?
Well, I think we can afford it, can we?
I don't see how we can. So I guess our direction is if they wanna buy into us,
Pursue that.
or do we just say,
But,
"Sit in here"?
like they say, I want other costs factored in there, just, you don't get to buy in.
Yeah, all the buy-in costs that I proposed is just to buy into our current capacity right now. That doesn't get them to the plant, that doesn't, I mean, they'd have all that cost of lift stations and getting it here. And then we'd have to work out percentages and all that
For the
stuff
upgrade.
on upgrade costs. So that would still have to happen, but the buy-in cost was strictly just to say, here's our current plant, you're gonna buy a certain capacity and here's what it would cost you to do that. So yeah, they would have
The
more,
upgrade though.
so they would have more than a $4 million cost to get, to come do this, but, you know, I still think this.
So they'd have 4 million plus their portion of 20%.
You know, they may be another
Okay.
2 or 3 million to get it here, and then whatever the upgrade cost would be to them, which we don't know that yet, so I don't have a number there, but, you know, let's say 6 to 7 million, it may cost them just to get their, sewer flow here, and then whatever our upgrade split would be a different cost.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I don't know nothing about sewer, but
You're gonna have a cesspool in your backyard.
that's possible. If Salem buys in, does that take up all our capacity to grow in this town?
Current, almost, basically, but
So,
they could come over with the current town of Salem, they could come over right now and join without any upgrade.
but does that cap us out? Can we
So we
add
can-
5 subdivisions if they're here too?
That's a good question.
No, I think we can make it, see, we gotta start this, we've gotta start this sewer upgrade.
Fairly soon.
Yeah, cause we have to have the new upgrade by 2020 according to the state letter. Now, they might back off that a little bit, but that's the reason for the upgrade is we would increase the expansion. So Salem could come right now and we could handle it.
But would it tie our hands for other subdivisions in our city?
Well, I don't know if in the next 2 years.
With our growth, it should go for the next 15, 20 years.
I mean, if we had a huge explosion, probably not, but if that hasn't happened.
We're just saying,
Just
we're
export
planning
people.
on the expansion even if they're coming, so they would have to help pay for the upgrade.
Well, the expansion would get bigger if Salem were to come to us.
I would just hate to tie our hands.
Right.
Well, sewer. The easy stuff's done, it's all this.
That's the law, you can only flush the toilet once a day.
Okay, is that it?
That's all we
We got
have.
direction, I guess.
Okay,
Okay,
just Mayor, the last thing is we need a short closed session.
yeah. We have a motion to close, council, or going to make that motion. Okay, we got a 1 and a 2 and a 3. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, we'll start again in 5 minutes, and we'll give it 5 minutes.